and start the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order. John just confirmed quorum. Taking a look at the agenda, we have 3 action items. We're going to go through the public health emergency as the first one, and then we've got a change order for a censure and approval of the standard approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. And then we're going to have 10 informational items. We've kept it concise, but still informative, as concise as we can be in the informational section, because there's a lot going on in the project. So we'll go ahead and we'll dive in right after we solicit public comment on items not posted on the agenda. So this would be the time for public comments not posted on the agenda. Okay, all right, hearing none, I think we can go ahead and dive into our action items, John.
Very good. One thing that I want to point out at the top of your Zoom, you'll see live transcription closed caption has been enabled. People have to be able to enable that on their individual PC. We've been asked for accessibility reasons to begin to enable closed caption. If Jennifer was to do that, that would be right over the top of the presentation. This is our first time trying it. We wanted to just turn it on and go for it today, but we know that we're going to continue with some testing in order to optimize it. But if an individual wants to turn on closed caption, it has to be turned on your individual PC. And over the next month, as we come up on our public meetings for August, we will try to optimize that and make it as friendly as possible as we go through that. Okay.
John, is it a setting in Zoom, or is it actually a PC setting?
I believe it's both. I think we have to do the setting in Zoom, and then in order to enable it, there's a PC setting that we could be able to do it. And Jennifer Tracy said it's not on, and Mike, it's a setting in Zoom.
Yeah, I see the Zoom setting with a CC live transcript. I just didn't know if we had to do something with the PC as well.
Yeah. So Mike Timbakian or Lulu, if you guys can try to provide some direction in the chat, that would be great. Knowing this is our first time and we're going to get better at it, but we said, you know what, even if it isn't tested, let's give it a try. If it helps somebody out, we'll do it. And we know that we need to work to optimize it.
Yeah, John, I just clicked on the CC live transcript. It's pretty easy. It's transcribing now, so it doesn't seem like it's awfully technically challenging. So everybody give it a try.
Very good. So our first item is the authorization. We're seeking JPA board approval to conduct all of our public meetings, JPA board, project steering committee, WCDS subcommittee, in accordance with the governor's state emergency related COVID-19 orders that remain in effect. And this is a month by month item. Just so you know, from CMS also extended the public health emergency to October. And we're still working under the governor's orders in regards to this. So we're seeking board approval to continue to do that for the coming month. So this is open for board questions or action.
Any questions or comments from our board members, state partners on this? Been a pretty standard thing for the last several meetings. Any public comment on it? Okay, hearing none on either, then I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve this.
Thank you, Michael.
Tracy, second.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, Marla, do you approve?
Yes.
Very good. Rachel, do you approve?
Yes.
Thank you. Becky?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Woods?
Yes.
Thank you. And I think Deborah Martinez is logged on. Deborah,
Yes,
do you?
my apologies.
No
Yes,
problem.
my apologies, and yes.
We have departments that.
Thank you so much. Sayori, do you approve?
Yes.
Very good. Do you approve?
Yes.
Very good. Roxana?
Yes.
Very good. And I don't know if Diana Alexander has been able to join us yet, or Rogelio from
I'm
DCFS.
here, John. I'm here, John. It's Diana. Sorry.
Welcome, Diana, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
This is Rogelio. I approve.
Very good. 100% attendance. That's fantastic. All right. Michael, I think we're ready for our next item.
Yes, that's the Accenture chain notice 19, correct?
Correct. And this is not on the consent calendar. We really wanted to take a little bit of time to give you a little bit of background and walk through a presentation on this item. We know that many of our change notices do go on a consent calendar, but change notice 19 includes a request to add hours for functional support. We've gotten some money through our APD process for our system integrator to be able to have staffing, to be able to assist and keep staffing levels at an adequate level as we go through the migration for the Cal-Win counties. And so there's a supplement to that so that the funding does not drop off. It stays at an appropriate level. And then one of the items that we're looking at in consultation with input that we received from directors at CWDA and those types of things, as well as our implementation experience, that as the counties are going live on Benefits Cal, there's many different technical items that may come up that county staff need support on that might be technical in nature. As that became very apparent with the LA go live, it also became apparent that we needed to have a long-term solution. Mike Tumbakian and his team have really plugged in to try to be a stopgap, but we are exploring and looking at a long-term solution that would have a Benefits Cal technical help desk that would still be there for the counties to be able to engage with a client, to be able to take care of things that are more of a technical in nature. So there's two parts of this change notice. On the Benefits Cal and the help desk, it might be, why are we engaging Accenture on the Benefits Cal side? We have Accenture subcontracts with Gainwell to run our help desk, and we're utilizing the dollars and budgets that we have in order to put this in place and stand it up immediately in advance of the Cal-Win counties coming live. This has already, all the costs are covered through our CalSAWS IAPDU funding, and all current year costs are accounted for in our 22-23 CalSAWS project budget, which has already been approved. So what I'm going to do is, I think we're going to start off with, is it Dawn? Are you going to start off and provide us a little bit of background?
I will. Thank you, John. So again, as John indicated, we are talking about Benefits Cal technical questions. So the counties do receive these contacts initially, and they obviously attempt to resolve them when someone who is trying to work with Benefits Cal, be that a CBO or a member of the public that is trying to access services and runs into a problem. The counties do attempt those and resolve, I'm sure, the vast majority of them. However, they do have situations in which they cannot resolve those. And as John indicated, there's a temporary solution in place right now where the consortium staff is handling those, but that is sort of being handled outside of our normal help desk processes and services. And so our intent here is to really get that into the regular help desk service lane, if you will, and allow the counties to use those existing processes and enhance them to actually allow them to get this particular assistance when they need it. So the concept here is that we will be providing a number for a warm transfer. So the person who the county is working with can actually be transferred in to the help desk. We will have folks who are oriented and specializing in working with the public in order to be able to work through any of these problems. It will also allow us to track incidents in ServiceNow so we can actually gather data, do analytics, and increase our service and have lessons learned that come out of that, because we will have that background data available. We will work to resolve those, but if in any case we cannot, there will be level 3 support provided by Deloitte to work through those. So what's not changing here is that the counties will continue to provide the initial support, and the level 3 support that Deloitte is providing will also continue. If we could move to the next slide, please. So we are doing a joint organization implementation approach here. We are touching all of the organizations that provide services. And so we're beginning with the consortium team because they are currently supplying some of these services to the counties. We'll get their background, we'll understand their interactions, what is their current experiences, so that we can better tailor the implementation of this particular help desk. And then we'll also be engaging with Deloitte, of course, to get any information they have on existing job aids, tips and tricks, frequently asked questions. And our current help desk does actually get a number of calls related to benefits Cal, but what we're adding and enhancing here is this chance for members of the public to actually receive aid through our help desk services. And of course, not to be left off the team, Accenture will also be providing a number of services. So I'm going to turn this over to Arnold to go ahead and discuss the Accenture role in expanding the ServiceNow application. Arnold?
Thank you, Dawn. If we move on to the next slide. So while Gain will be augmenting the service desk with the actual agents who will be fielding the calls, Accenture will be providing the technical infrastructure required. And so that includes both the IVR call flows with the contact center that's currently used by the current service desk. And so we're going to be creating a new call flow to support those incoming calls. We're going to be creating new queues to support English and Spanish languages. And then we're also going to be investigating the use of the screen sharing functionality for those that are operating off of desktops and laptops, because right now there is still a technical limitation in being able to use screen sharing off of cell phones. We move on to the next slide, please. So if you look at it, the current scope is scheduled to go through October of 2023. For this desk, it will also be included, or the look to expand it with the upcoming RFP as well. So John, at this point, that's the end of the discussion on the service desk. There's another part of change order 19, which had the ISS as well. Would you like me to proceed to go into that as well?
Do a presentation on both and know that there might be two different sets of questions from our board member or the public. So why don't you give an overview of the functional support as well?
Absolutely. And so the other part of change order 19 is around extension of the CalWIN functional support services. And so this is continuing to be enhanced support that Accenture subject matter experts are providing for the CalWIN counties. And you'll see that it really covers all of the functional areas of CalSAWS that CalWIN counties will be consuming post or running up to the go live. And so this is doing the support of the CDGs, so the configuration guides. It's doing the business process reviews and supporting ad hoc data mapping as well. So if you look at it, it's really providing that support to the consortium as well as to the ISS team from a functional perspective from the CalSAWS support team. It also includes the technical process simulation support. So that is the environment build and the operational readiness of that process simulation environment that those CalWIN counties are going to be using prior to go live to prove out the business processes that have been established for CalSAWS as they migrate onto it. It includes triaging, prioritization, resolution of any environmental issues, as well as ongoing batch operations and data refreshes for those environments. We move on to the next slide, please. Holly, I'll transition to you to provide overall cost.
Thanks, Arnold. So, so I'll walk through this table on the slide here, focusing on the right side of the page. The table provides a summary of the costs that are documented within this change notice in the blue boxes. So the top box is the technical help desk portion of $185,000. That includes that setting up of the queues and that infrastructure that Arnold talked about. And the funding associated with that is tied to some savings within our CalSAWS IAPDU. We do have some savings in our production operations line item. This is just through our regular recasting of our projections, and we tighten those up. So we have identified $185,000 in savings for that. In addition, though, in that gray box, you'll see that this solution also leverages our mod hours from our CalWIN contract, or modification hours. Those are built into our CalWIN agreement. And these are hours that must be used to support the migration effort, as per direction we received from the state about 3 years ago. So the just over 8,600 hours will support the Gainwell staff through October 2023. Those are staff that will be dedicated to answering the calls. There are no additional costs tied to those hours. These are already built into the fixed price of our contract. And then beyond October 2023, for the technical help desk, we would be pursuing additional funding through our standard annual IAPDU process. And then the bottom part of the table is for functional support. This funding is already accounted for and approved as part of the January 2022 IAPDU. You actually had previously approved a portion of these costs in an earlier change notice while we went through that process. But we wanted to keep the scope and the costs together, so we replaced that prior change notice with change notice 19. So the total cost for approval is $4.7 million. And with that, I will turn it back to Michael.
Yeah, Holly, can you put that back up on the screen? Because it's hard to ask questions if I can't see the information. So just, I have a question. I'll definitely open it up to other board members for question and comments as well. But this table for the Benefits Cal Technical Help Desk solution, I don't quite understand the math on it because, you know, the 2022 3-year is about 180,000. That might barely be one person, 1.5 people. And then the next year is like 4,500. It doesn't even fund a single person. So how is it that we're able to fund a help desk at this low number?
Yep. So the 185,000 is for the technical, it's the infrastructure, the licensing, setting up the queues, the IVR. That's the technical side that enables the staff. The staff is part of our mod hours, which is part of our CalWIN contract at no additional cost. So
okay.
Yeah. So and those are the hours that we track. You'll see that on our quarterly fiscal report that I provide that updates to that status through that reporting structure.
Okay, thank you. That helps make sense out of the numbers for me.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have a question for Don and for Arnold. In terms of the way the help desk is going to be run, since these will be staff covering, I guess it's a number of areas, right? We're really trying to, and I'm so happy the project's doing this. I'm real pleased that we're addressing this because it's a gap I think that needs filled. But if they're going to be answering the calls, are they going to be trained and also given the authority to do things in the various systems to help people on the line, so we're not having to call them back later on to tell them we fixed something? Because some of the things, you know, are going to be in ForgeRock, right? They're going to be account-based type of things, and some things might be in CalSAWS. Most of them are probably in those two platforms, and less in Benefits Cal itself. It's the enabling underpinning infrastructure that you guys would be helping people with when we have trouble. So will the people on these help desks have that training and that ability to do that?
So go ahead, Arnold.
I'll start, Don, and say this was really, this initial set of the service was focused on the questions that are coming on the Benefits Cal UI questions. And so that's where the immediate need was surfaced from that. I can see this extending into or connecting to other, I'll say, topics and areas of consideration. To realize this is the public facing desk. So this is really the first attempt to have the public facing on the Benefits Cal side.
Yeah, I'll just
Don,
give
go
you
ahead.
I'll give you a real example. Like we might be helping somebody at the county level trying to link a case, and then we can't quite do it. There's something technically with it. We would then turn to you guys to help with that.
Yeah, Michael, let me walk through a quick example, then have Don take it there to sort of
Thank you.
connect all the dots. Because what this is that this help desk will not be receiving calls directly from the public.
Right. No.
The county will still do that. As the county, if they run into an issue that says, you know what, I'm not able to link a case, I'm not able to do this, and the worker's sitting there saying, I don't know how to do that, they can do a warm transfer over, they can have a discussion on that. We've noticed that some of the direction that we were giving back to the county was, hey, you just need to clear your cache. And it's different on how you clear your cache on an Android versus an Apple device. Or, hey, there might be something in ForgeRock with account linking or something else like that that we need to sort of talk through. It's sort of being that hub to be able to rectify those things and enable the county to be able to move on their way. And then I know Deborah has a question, but Dawn, maybe you want to clean that up or add to it, and then we'll get to Deborah's question.
Sure. So Michael, these folks will definitely be intensively trained in terms of Benefits Cal, and they are also trained on dealing with members of the public and the CBO as well. They specialize in that. And they will have the abilities that the service desk has today. So there are some technical things that the service desk is capable of doing, but the other benefit of putting it into this process is in the event that the service desk couldn't help, because there is some much bigger thing that needs to be done inside of the system, we will be able to get that routed correctly to Deloitte if there is something related to Benefits Cal, or potentially over to, you know, the regular project Accenture ForgeRock area, and as in the example that you gave, if it's bigger than what the help desk normally can do. But we'll be able to route those quickly to the right location and get those resolved faster.
Does
So I
that
think
become is that what level 3 becomes then, if it gets to that level of technical?
correct. If the help desk cannot do it, then we will basically reach out into the proper organization, whichever of our organizations that is, and make sure that that ticket gets resolved.
Thank you. Deborah, you have your hand up?
Yeah, you know, I was just wondering, making sure that we're able to track just how many of these get actually resolved or require that the third-party intervention or our help desk tickets. I know anecdotally that they've been in assistance at times, right? And I think it's great that we're going to be able to do a three-way call and get them resolved for our client's sake. But I would like to, because since we're going to be thinking that after October 2023, we're talking about putting it in IADP, it would just be nice to see if, hey, at some point, our help desk folks should get that much more experienced as we're in the system. So it would be nice to see a trend of just how many times are actually requiring the project to intervene.
And they'll be in there as separate queues, so we'll be able to pull the statistics on those.
Marla?
Hi, thank you, Michael. I was going to change the conversation to the functional support if we're ready, or I have a question about functional support, if it's okay to go with that.
Yeah, let's just split real quick just so we can find out if there's any other questions or comments from our board members on the help desk part of this change order. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move to your questions on the functional support.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, John, for this additional functional support. I think it's great that we're making this investment at this point in the CalWIN transition. Really appreciate it. And the items that are listed here for the functional support, the to-be processes, change guides, you know, the county configurations, I think those are areas where we've heard from the board that, there needed to be more support. And so really appreciate seeing that. And wondering if you can speak for a minute about how this support by Accenture will be integrated with the support from Deloitte. Want to make sure that from the county perspective, it's a real seamless set of support services.
I'll start and then I'll ask Arnold to come in. So the first part of it is, as we looked at doing a really important step called process simulation, that was not included in the scope of work that we had. And process simulation is a step in the process where Deloitte has worked with the counties to do their as-is and to-be business processes. Those business processes are documented, and there's been some vetting of them, but we need to test those to ensure that they work in CalSAWS. So there is an activity called process simulation, and part of this change order is the environment, the setup, and working through that so that in an orchestrated manner, the county is working with the project team to be able to test the handoffs of those business processes and those things to make sure that the to-be processes are accurate and work as expected with CalSAWS. So that's adding that step into the scope of work that was not anticipated for the process simulation and doing that. The other item is in regards to county configurations. It is not an easy task to be able to, there's a lot of options that counties have to be able to make operational choices in CalSAWS that reflect how you want your county to do business. Some of those things needed to be documented better and are fairly complex, and we needed our system integrator to be able to do that. And Accenture has worked hand in hand with Deloitte to be able to do that, put together guides, vet that out, maybe with wave 1, and it's being tested with wave 1 for UAT. It was tested for UAT. Process simulation for wave 1 starts off on Monday and is resulting in some documentation, material, and support for each one of the waves that include Accenture, so that important step of configuration takes place. And then lastly, sort of working together on the other change discussion guides and those types of things. Sometimes we need the opinions and perspective from our system integrators, and that and having some resources to be able to continue that as we go forward. Arnold, do you want to add some to that or clean that up?
I think you did a very good job of summarizing it. It's really providing the CalSAWS functional experts across those critical deliverables to try and shortcut some of the iterations that we are seeing and take that forward as our lessons with wave 2 and beyond.
And the county shouldn't care whether it's Accenture, Deloitte, consortium. You should be looking at and saying, am I getting what I need? Is this the level of detail? Is this the materials that I need? We're trying to shore that up between the Deloitte team, consortium team, and Accenture team to make sure that we have a workforce that can provide what's necessary.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Arnold. I think this is just super responsive to what the Calhoun counties have been talking about, and it makes me really optimistic as we're just getting ready to head into wave 1 and for all the future waves. I think it's a great addition. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from our board members on the functional support side of this, or even back to the technical help desk component of this?
This is Diana Alexander. Forgive me, but my CEO pulled me into a quick meeting, which is why I wasn't so responsive. But I just want to make sure I didn't miss on the Benefits Cal help desk a couple of things. Will there be any new direct charges to counties for this? And you might have already discussed it, so forgive me if you have.
So this is Holly, I'll take that. The costs are already accounted for in the IAPDU. So your county share of cost is, won't change beyond what's already been projected.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from board members or state partners? Brian Wong, you're on as well, right?
I am sorry, I couldn't find the mute button there.
That's okay. Okay, hearing none, then I'm going to go ahead and move to any public comment on this particular item.
Hi, this is Jen Tracy from the Advocates Group. I had a couple questions. I noticed in the documentation that it said English and Spanish will be supported. Are there plans for supporting folks who call in with technical needs that speak other languages?
Jen, it is a warm transfer. So we're hoping that the translation services that are provided by the county can assist in doing that and do the translation from English to Spanish, or English to other threshold languages. This is really a technical help desk. We know that we had the capacity to be able to provide Spanish in addition to English, but that other languages, hopefully, as there is a warm transfer, that we would keep that county employee on the line to help serve if necessary as an interpreter for that. So there wasn't an immediate need to be able to expand beyond that. We wanted to see what the experience is and see if there was some there was a need to be able to do that. But we did have the capacity right off the bat through the staff we identified to do Spanish and English.
Okay, great. I think if counties are supportive of that, that sounds great. I also noticed that there wasn't training included. I'm just curious how county staff will know how to use the service.
There are some change discussion guides and those types of things that we are going to be working with the counties on, be able to put it in place. Dawn or Arnold, do you want to outline any of the training that is scoped in for the technical help desk with the counties in collaboration?
Yep, I can handle that. So while we didn't call it out directly on the slides, we will be providing all the process information to the counties, and we will be holding webinars with them to be sure that they understand the process to access the Benefits Cal Technical Help Desk, and we'll be monitoring to be sure that they are contacting us successfully. So we will be handling that for the counties.
Thanks, Dawn. And then my last question, is there a way to find out the scope of services that will be provided through this warm handoff service? I didn't see anything in the documents that I understood as being what things consumers might need help with, but maybe I missed it.
We can take that back. It's probably in the change notice, but we can tease out from training materials and those types of things, Jen, to make sure that it's clear of the types of things that we are backing up the counties on and providing support for. So we'll take that as an action item, and we'll make sure that that's clear to both the counties as well as the public.
Thank you so much. I'm excited about this. Thank you for creating a solution that I think will be really, really helpful for consumers and I hope for counties too. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Okay, great. Well, I'm thankful to the project for being responsive to these issues that have been brought forward in prior meetings and discussions. So I will go ahead and make a motion to approve this.
This is Becky. I'll second.
Okay, Brian, any comments from the state?
None here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Marla, do you approve?
Yes.
Thank you. Tracy?
Yes.
Excellent. Rachel?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Woods?
Yes.
Thank you. Deborah Martinez?
Yes.
Very good. Diana Alexander?
Yes.
Thank you. Sayori?
Yes.
Thank you. An?
Yes.
Thank you. Roxana?
Yes.
Very good. And Rogelio?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. And now we are going to approval of the June 30th meeting minutes. And so they're open for board consideration or an action at this time, Michael. That's more on the consent calendar side.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry, we didn't differentiate those. Is there any questions or concerns with our minutes? Any changes needed? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
This is Rachel. It's Region 2. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Rachel.
Deborah, Region 4, I approve. I mean, I support the motion.
Excellent.
Second for us.
Marla, do you approve?
Yes.
Very good. Tracy?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Becky?
Yes.
Excellent. Chris Woods?
Yes.
Very good. And Diana, you may not have been here, so maybe approving it for the record, but not for content. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Excellent. Sayori, do you approve?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. An, do you approve?
Yes, for the record.
Very good. Roxana?
Yes.
Very good. Michael?
Yes.
And Rogelio for the record.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion carries. And now we're going to get started on our informational item. Is that Lisa?
Yes,
Sawz?
yes, it is. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so next couple of slides, we just want to give a brief update on the upcoming CalSAWS releases. We have our standard every other month baseline release. So this weekend, in fact, we are deploying our release 2207. That's our July release. It was greenlit for approval to be deployed just this past Wednesday. As with most of our baseline releases, there's a mix of changes going in. You see some highlights there, some policy changes. We have some integrations, new integrations with Benefits Cal, as well as some additional languages going in for our Medi-Cal RE packets. Oh, stay on the last slide, please. So I wanted to thank you. I know many staff were involved in, from design and approving designs, as well as we have many counties participating in testing efforts. So thank you to your staff for their collaboration as we get another release out the door this year. When we look a little further into the future, September, not that far away, we also have our baseline release at the end of September. Again, just some highlights here on this slide. That release has been in development for a couple of months, and at the end of this month, we will turn it over to all our testers across the organizations to begin the testing efforts to get that ready to go on 9/26. Next slide. In the interim, there's lots of activities as well. We have a number of priority releases that are coming up, including some of our very important COLA increases that we run each year. In early August, we have our CNI increase for our foster care kin gap AAP population across the 40 production counties. So that will be running in early August. LA County also has a special process that they run for their clothing allowance in the middle of August. We'll also be running our monthly process where we issue benefits to our CalFresh households. That is an ongoing process at this time, and we'll continue to run in August for our July month. And then when we get to September, it's really exciting. Every weekend we have some very important processes running. Again, the emergency allotments for CalFresh will run in the beginning of September. And then we have our biggest COLA of the year that we will be running across the entire CalFresh CalWorks population, the COLA increase, the MAP increase. That's the 10th. The very next weekend will be a milestone in itself. Things continue on plan as we get ready for our Wave 1 county cutovers and that prep cutover activity for that weekend. There's also a CalHERS release where we're doing integrated testing with our CalHERS partners over at Cover California. And then we get to our baseline release at the end of the month. So lots of activities going on. I did want to mention, I neglected to say it on the last slide, but our July release is also important for our UAT, CalWIN UAT activities that are beginning on Monday. We had some of the GAGR time limit functionality that was just wrapped up and tested in that release. That code base has now been deployed to UAT in readiness for the activities that are beginning this coming Monday with our CalWIN County participants. And that's it for the quick highlights for the releases. Before we move off this topic, I did want to bring on Arnold. He did want to give you all an overview of the events of this past Friday, the actions that we did have across the systems.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. This is a new addition because it's the later breaking news. So I wanted to thank the board for consideration. Giving you an update on the production outage that we had last Friday. Just to give you a chronology of the events, at roughly 7:35 on Friday morning, we started receiving reports of intermittent issues with logging on to the services offered by CalSAWS. And the issue was traced back to the ForgeRock solution, which provides the front end identity management and the front end for the logging into CalSAWS and the other systems. That intermittent connectivity, we were seeing about 20% failure rate continued until about 12:30 in the afternoon. At that point, the team had attempted to do a restart of the core services to restore full functionality. They had issues with the restart, which caused an extended outage until 2:17 before services were fully resolved and brought back up again. So this was a very disruptive event to the counties, to the citizens, and we are taking it very seriously in addressing the root cause of, first, the issue that caused the initial disruption, the partial disruption, which was traced back to a single server within the group of 3 servers that were modified in a change the previous evening. The initial root cause shows that there was human error in applying the change to the servers in that evening. That was the triggering event for the disruption. In addition, for the restoration that occurred at the 12:30 window, there's another issue that we are working with ForgeRock to diagnose, to understand why the restarts failed to resolve the issue, which caused the elongation of the outage event. So we are looking at, as part of the RCA, we're looking at the alerting that occurred and did not occur, as well as the escalation upon seeing the overall service disruption that was occurring. The other component we are looking at is modifying our communication strategy. And so there were communications that were going out during the course of the outage. However, there were certain groups of interested parties that were not receiving the communications in a timely enough fashion. So we are revising and reviewing our communication protocols as well to make sure that the data is getting out to all of the impacted parties as soon as possible, from both an impact perspective as well as an estimated time for restoration of services. So I'll be coming back in subsequent meetings to report out on progress on the final root cause analysis, the RCA, as well as progress along the remediation actions to validate that the controls are put in place to avoid a reoccurrence of the issue.
And Arnold, thank you for that. And just a quick item for the board that when we're looking at communications, I know that there's some requests that myself or Laura Chavez, also from the consortium perspective, make sure that our board is up to date on those things. We might not have the technical answers because it's still going through, but where we're at to make sure that that's clear. The other thing, especially with this outage, is some public communication, because the public, because it shut down Benefits Cal, the public could come in and apply for benefits through Benefits Cal and do that, but they could not access their account if they were trying to log in because of the outage impact ForgeRock, which is our access management software. So we have some cleanup to do on that, and we'll do a retrospective to be able to do that and clean up that, because it wasn't as clean as we wanted for our counties or the public. Thanks, Arnold.
Thank you, John.
I think, Michael, that turns this item back to you.
Yes.
So Arnold, I know that you mentioned that there was still some work being done to confirm the issue on the ForgeRock side. Is there any idea how long that might be before we have that RCA or the root cause back from that part?
So we do have the first part of the RCA and the manual in line of sight on that one. We expect to get the root cause back on the restoration or the what caused the total outage within the next 3 to 4 business days.
Okay, so we're looking within a week's time, we should be able to have
Yes.
definitive answer. And does there's still another step to reconfigure again once we have that?
Yes, there is. So we are being very cautious as we go forward, especially in light of the upcoming release this weekend as well, to minimize disruption to the environment. So yes, we're taking a very measured approach towards the updating and application of changes to the production environment.
And in the meantime, are we still protected with redundancy?
Yes, so we are still running on multiple servers, as well as the DR environment is available and functional for us in the event we need to move traffic over to our DR environment to protect service.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the transparency on this and also the remediation steps being taken. I want to open this up to questions or comments from other board members. Or our state partners, of course. Okay.
Thank you for the update.
All right. Hearing none, then any public comment on this item? Okay. All right, John, we'll go ahead and move. Thank you. Appreciate it, Arnold. And
Thank you.
Okay,
move on to risks with Rachel and myself.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect. Okay, so we wanted to do first a little bit of an orientation. I know in one of the previous meetings, there was a question that when Rachel, you and Arnold present risks, you tell us what's high, medium, and low, but we would like to understand how high, medium, and low are actually determined. So just wanted to walk through what the calculation is that we use to determine what is high, medium, or low. And it truthfully is a mathematical formula that takes the probability of something occurring times the impact of that particular event. And based off of those two pieces of information results in a value, and that value then is what we use to determine whether or not something is high, medium, or low. If we could move to the next slide, just looking at probability. We look at probability from the likelihood that it is highly unlikely that the event will actually occur, all the way to near certainty. Near certainty isn't actually certain. When it becomes certain, then it becomes an issue. So we go from highly unlikely to near certainty, and there are assigned weightages or percentages to each of those criteria associated with this area of the risk calculation. If we could move to the next slide, we'll walk through the impact area. And in the impact, we rated on a scale of 1 to 5 across 4 specific dimensions. And those dimensions are the impact to cost, the impact from a technical implementation, whether or not there's a schedule impact, and whether or not there's an impact to overall quality. So for each of these areas, we assess what the potential impact would be and then use that to determine what the overall rating is for a particular risk, whether it becomes high, medium, or low. Okay, so with that as the backdrop and the orientation, now Arnold, I believe you have the first risk to discuss, if I recall correctly. Yeah.
That is correct. And another point that I will make as I go through and Rachel and I are discussing this risk, we're going to frame it in the context of what our status is for wave 1 versus subsequent waves. And in future updates, we will actually update the risk to give a stoplight, an amber, red, or green status based upon wave. So because we're going to see different levels of risks based upon the wave status. And so I'll start with 258, which is on the Cal wind conversion cutover window. We are at risk of exceeding the 84-hour cutover window. And this is an example to where right now, as we stand, we are at yellow for the wave 1 counties. Because the mock cutover that was just executed earlier in the month resulted in 87 hours. The team has the plan and will be exercising that plan coming up in the next week and a half when we do mock cutover 2, and are confident that we will be bringing that under that 84-hour window. As we look forward towards the subsequent waves, we are going to have to look at the other components that are contributing to the elongation of that window. For example, in wave 1, we're converting 20 years of history. And so the question is there really a need to convert 20 years of all of the history or just selections of that and see if we can apply that to the future waves? So that will be done through open communication with all of our stakeholders, the steering committee, JPA, as we work through those mitigation actions and look at that for our subsequent waves. If we move on to the next slide.
Thanks, Arnold.
So
I'll
that-
take 262. Yeah,
Yep.
perfect. Thank you. Okay, so for 262, much like Arnold had mentioned, we are going to be breaking this out by wave. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update of 262 relative to the waves that we have engaged to date. So you can understand where they sit relative to their red, amber, and green related risks. So for 262, we've been tracking this to make sure that we're providing the counties with the information that they need in order for the counties to actually be prepared, separate and distinct from the project and the system being ready, but the county's actual preparation and readiness for go live. And what we have done for wave 1 is wave 1 has a baseline work plan. They have a baseline checklist. They have a baseline critical path that we are using on a weekly basis internally to monitor what the impact is to the particular schedule, if there is anybody, but we're monitoring that critical path. And then one other item that we've also done just to make sure that the wave 1 counties understand from a communications aspect is provide them with a communication roadmap for what the OCM team will be providing them so they can be aware of what is up and coming in terms of communications around the migration. That leads us into what will be coming up for the wave 1 counties, which is our formal governance process around green light that will assess the overall readiness for the county to go live in October. For the wave 1 counties, we also have a readiness dashboard and packet that contain summaries on a weekly basis that are updated, that provide a visual of where the county is relative to their respective readiness areas. So we're monitoring that as well as part of the critical path. On wave, John, did you want to weigh in here for a moment? You came off of mute.
No, I think you're about ready to hit it. So go ahead.
Wave 2? Yeah. Yes. So on wave 2, we also have the work plan and the checklist baselined as well as a critical path for wave 2. And we have just completed the work plan and the checklist and the critical path baselining for waves 3 as well. So those items have been, they're in what we call now maintenance mode that we're using on the project on a day-to-day basis for waves 2 and for wave 3 as we move forward. John, I'm going to hit on the CDGs when we get to 270, if that's what you wanted to chat about.
No, there's no, just to make it clear. So next month, the JPA board will see this also split out by wave, and there'll be a stop light by waves. So as you can see, we are trending actually green for wave 1. It's sort of just in time. We got a lot of these things in place, but they are there. They are being used, and I think we're in good shape for wave 1. Wave 2, some of those items now that we have, again, a little bit late, that are there, they might be trending more towards an amber, and we'll be doing that. So that's why it's really important that we look at these things, and that it's clear we're good for wave 1, a little bit late on wave 2, and then we have to pick up the pace as we go out for these other ones. But the team is working through that, and you'll see clarity on this next month as we provide this risk split by wave.
Yeah, and one other item just to close out this risk relative to 0.5. The TAWS team meetings are really critical to make sure that we're connected with the counties to understand where they are relative to their overall readiness. We are augmenting the participants in the TAWS team meetings to make sure that we have got folks just augmenting from, I'll say, a resource perspective, but also from an awareness and education viewpoint, because I know that there's a lot of really critical questions that are coming from the counties as part of those TAWS team meetings. So we are shoring up those efforts to make sure that we're also providing the knowledge, and if we need to take something back to get it from one of our respective teams, that turnaround time frame is quick, so that the counties can actually progress forward. Okay, Arnold, 263, sir.
Sure, 263, unresolved high priority conversion defects that remain unresolved prior to the cutover could impact county-based caseworker business. And so if we look at our current status for our wave 1, as we currently stand, we have 0 priority 1 defects, so major defects. There is 1 priority 2 that the team is currently working through in the assembly test environment. And there are priority 3 and 4, which priority 4 gets into more of the cosmetic. Priority 3 typically has workarounds. So the team is continuing to work through and has a burn down for that. CalSAWS will be talking about that as we come forward. We're aligned with quality assurance as well as our consortium and our county partners on aligning on those severities. We expect to see more defects coming in with the wave 2 or UAT starting up for the county in the next couple of weeks, and we will continue to prioritize as those go forward. So right now we are trending green on 263 from a wave 1 perspective. If we move on to the next slide, please. So 268, Rachel, I'll let you take over through that.
Sure, thanks, Arnold. 268 is our overarching risk that we are using to track the overall readiness that includes both the county as well as the project-related readiness for the cutover. So 268, just for reference, we're using this to continue to monitor all the risks that Arnold and I talk about on these calls, and that the team monitors on a daily basis on the as far as the migration effort is concerned. And this is where we have defined a contingency plan in the event that any of these risks were to come to a realization that or to a point that were not recoverable. It is good project management to have a contingency plan in place. It is something that we have in our back pocket, but at this juncture is not something that is needing to be executed, as the risks that we have are trending in a place where the project is moving forward. So we still have this, but it's a way for us to track the contingency plan and if we need to make changes to it. Arnold, 269.
Yes, so 269 is in regards to having the Calwin counties have appropriate time to refactor their ad hoc reports and ancillary system before go live. So again, for the wave 1 counties, we believe that we are in a green status there, in the fact that we have gone through quite a bit of meetings with the 2 counties and have mapped the core CalSAWS reports to what's currently produced, as well as have gone through the options of the data lake, the ad hoc through Apex and EDR, as well as the CalSAWS database structure and data dictionary training. So some of the counties still have some work to do to refactor the remaining reports that aren't already being provided through the core CalSAWS application. However, we believe that there has been zero indication that there is a concern of having that completed before the go live. So the same process is proceeding with the other waves as well, starting with the data dictionary, mapping the CalSAWS reports, and going through the same process with the data lake before ending up with the ad hoc. So from that, there is a significant focus to keep the other waves on a positive trend there as well. If we move on to the next slide, please. So 270, Rachel, I'll let you talk through 270.
Perfect, thanks, Arnold. So for 270, this is another one that we are going to be splitting out into the stoplight indicators for future waves, as each of the waves and transparently, I'll say each of the counties is truthfully at a different stage relative to the completion of their change discussion guides. For wave 1, the change discussion guides have been approved, and we have also, as of last week, conducted the preliminary sessions with Yolo and Placer County to orient their supervisors and their managers about how to now operationalize the change discussion guides in terms of having conversations with their staff to orient them about the pending change. And so for right now, for the wave 1 counties, we are moving from a red to an amber. We're leaving it in an amber status. And the reason behind that is we want to monitor how those conversations are taking place ongoing for the wave 1 counties. So we have checkpoints, we have office hours, we're meeting with the PPOCs on a weekly basis for wave 1 with the intent of getting feedback about how those conversations are actually taking place. For the wave 2 counties, we are in a state of red for wave 2. One of the wave 2 counties, which is Tulare, has provided their approval for the change discussion guide, and we will be proceeding forward with the conversations around the change discussions with Tulare as planned. Santa Clara and Contra Costa have provided us with some feedback on the version of the change discussion guides that they had received this past week. That requires us to do a couple of things. One, Santa Clara, there were a set of comments that the team did miss and not incorporate as part of their updates provided to the county. The county has requested that we meet with a small group between the county and the ISS team to walk through those changes so that we can avoid the back and forth of using the comment log to get through the final set of comments coming from Santa Clara. And it's something that we're going to be working with the county in terms of dates for when that will take place. But that's something that we are desiring to happen and will make happen with the county. Contra Costa has provided us with feedback and a set of new comments that have come back that the team is currently triaging. In addition, we've heard some feedback that some of the comments that had been provided previously had not been fully vetted. And to reduce back and forth between the county and the team that is modifying the change discussion guides, we will be reaching back out to Contra Costa in a similar fashion to Santa Clara to have those conversations to incorporate the feedback so we can get to a good place and a good set of content for the counties for their change discussion guides. As part of those conversations, the team is also going to be sharing what other information is available in terms of support to the counties. And that is everything from information that would be in infographics, job aids, training, process simulation, configuration sessions, pre-post implementation support, UAT. And there are a number of places that communications are coming out and a variety of sources of content to support the adoption of the change within the counties. My team needs to actually educate a bit more on that because it's an area that I think has been a bit of a void that we need to do so that we know that there's multiple places where information will be coming from in terms of support. Wave 3 counties were originally scheduled to have their draft work products received today. We had received a request from Orange County asking to have a live conversation before they received the draft work product to talk about the change discussion guides, looking back at waves 1 and wave 2. The team is looking to alter a bit our approach going forward so that it becomes more of an interactive dialogue with the counties as these change discussion guides are being developed and produced, as opposed to completion of a product and then we receive the feedback coming through a comment log and comment response period. So there will be changes coming in terms of the way that the change discussion guides are developed going forward. And wave 4, 5, and 6 have yet to start. So we have opportunity. I think the last thing I want to close out on 270 is that the intent of these change discussion guides, as we've talked about before, is to have the supervisors have conversations with their staff to orient them about the pending change. And it's supposed to be big changes, not down to the little changes that are in the system, because that can be a bit overwhelming to have all of those changes provided to somebody in anticipation of training. They are intended to have the conversations before training is to take place. And for wave 3, there is time. And for wave 2, there is also time before those training sessions are to be conducted where we can invest in the time right now to make sure that we get it right. Okay, Arnold, that is 270.
Let's move on to the next slide. So 272 has to do with changes to Calhoun County's point of presence site locations occurring less than 12 months prior to go live, may be at risk of not having connectivity with CalSAWS or meeting cutover milestones. So this is in regards to point of presence is the network connectivity between CalSAWS and the county. And so we had an instance to where Santa Clara County is basically moving their point of presence location, and we had already ordered the network connections to go into the original, and it needs to go into the new. What the impact of that is that we reset the clock. In some cases, it takes 3 to 4 months for those providers to establish those network connections. So this is more of a monitoring risk to make sure that if the counties are planning any of these types of changes, that we are notified as early as possible, because we are able to do some mitigation through establishment of some 4G wireless connections so that we can at least start doing some of those basic connectivity testing items. So we look to mitigate this as much as possible so that we can still keep the projects on schedule. All the other, so for wave 1, we're actually green, ready to go. And we are working through the others, and all the others are, other than the Santa Clara, are green as well. Santa Clara, we are working hand in hand with Santa Clara to work through the mitigation, and the AT&T will be on site to do the installation of that circuit so we can proceed forward.
So Arnold, we will split this one out also by, but just to emphasize something that you said, so far in our first 2 waves, we've encountered this risk. We've overcome that for wave 1, but Placer County also was doing a move of their POP location. We worked with the county very closely on that, just like we're working with Santa Clara County on that. So the call to action is if there is anything that's going on with county IT on moving locations and things like that, that have the potential of impacting your go live dates, please let us know as soon as possible so we could continue to work with your county IT or your Health and Human Services IT shop to be able to mitigate the impact on your go live date. Because when we're working with telecom companies, we can't control their schedule. We're sort of at the mercy of them. And luckily, so far on wave 1, we've been able to mitigate that. And on wave 2, we're in the process of mitigating that.
That is correct. Let's move on to the next slide. So 275 is, this is where we talked about, or John had just talked about the placer. And so 275 is really focused on a similar vein where 270 was on the POP locations, 275 is on the Calhoun counties unable to complete the tech readiness because of that connectivity. And so for wave 1 for placer, there was an upgrade of the firewall that was going on. Good news is we were, as of this evening, they'll complete their changes. But in the meantime, we have been able to do the interface partner testing and testing of flow between CalSAWS and Placer County. So for a wave 1 perspective, we are actually trending towards green and will be green as of tonight when Placer makes their final changes. So much in the vein as the previous, this is just, it applies to the network connections and as well as firewall changes, because we know with all of the activity that's going on in the cyber world, the counties are making changes to their security architectures. And we have seen some conflict that arises there that we've just had to work through in partnership with the counties and with the CalSAWS teams. If we move on to the next slide. So 278, Rachel, I'll turn back over to you.
Thank you, Arnold. 278 is a new risk that would not have been presented previously. This is one of our new risks that we are tracking. It was developed to track the implementation support plan completion and the associated content within the implementation support plan. Since the point of time that the implementation support plan has been, this risk has been created, we have submitted the deliverable, which is deliverable 10, to incorporate changes that were areas that needed to be aligned and agreed upon in terms of approach. And those 2 areas in particular were the pre-implementation support, which overlaps with the county preparatory phase, as well as the post-implementation support, that is the 60 days that are provided to the counties once the county has gone live. In the plan that had been submitted previously, there had not been, I think I'll use John's words, a coalition that had been aligned on that approach. And we needed to take steps to make sure that there was an agreement as to the overall approach as to how we plan for and how we are going to move forward with both pre and post implementation related support activities. So this is trending to amber at this stage. We have 2 upcoming milestones that we are tracking towards relative to the implementation support. And those are associated with confirming resource allocation to support the post-implementation support period, as well as the pre-implementation support period, and then working through the details of some of the processes that will be followed as part of that effort. And those are coming up in August. So it's something that we're going to continue to monitor, but something that is trending right now towards amber. Okay, I believe, Arnold, that moves to now our medium related items.
Let me just interject here, and Michael, something for your consideration. I know that we're trending behind on this meeting. So we provided the medium and as also a low risk as well. I think people could probably read through the detail at their leisure. But again, these are medium risks. We don't think that we are tracking these items. We don't think that there's a likelihood that these items will come up. But we wanted to make sure that we go through the high profile risks and where we're at and how we're going to shift next month. We can go through these, but I know that on time we are a bit late, and it might not be the best use of the board's time if we went through the medium risks, unless you would like to. Just a suggestion.
John,
Right.
I think we, what do we need in terms to cover that, in terms of time? How much time to cover that?
I think we're about 20 minutes or so behind. I think the big thing, and I just wanted to emphasize this to the board, I'm not thrilled as your project executive to come in here and have the project presenting 6 or 7 slides of red high profile risks. I think we're doing a good job mitigating them for wave 1. And that's why we're going to be breaking out those high profile risks and showing them wave by wave by wave as we're going on. But I think we need transparency for each one of the waves, because we are having some challenges on landing some of these things, and it's happening just in time that we're doing that. And this is the way we track it. This is the way we make sure that people know about that. And we want to be transparent about that. So, and you're going to see a little bit different format next month, because I think it's very important that we track this wave by wave by wave, because we have been staying in front of the curve for wave 1. We're making progress on wave 2, but we're not there on many of those things. So I just wanted to emphasize that. And I think we're about 20 minutes or so behind schedule, Michael, but we could spend a little bit more time. But I'm guessing that the board's going to have questions on the high profile risks that we went over, and want to spend a little bit of time on that.
I agree. So for this particular meeting, we'll go ahead and leave the medium risks for the board and others to review separately. We can take questions on the high risk items that were discussed. And then in our next meeting, we'll create a greater focus, because everything's going to be about risk and waves. And we'll just lighten up some of the other informational items so that we can go ahead and afford the time to have fulsome discussion on these items. Okay.
So Michael, I
are
think
we
we
ready
can
to
turn it back to you for questions. Yeah.
I think we're ready to take questions and comments, and hopefully we have them, particularly from our Calhoun counties that are out there on these high risk items that were just discussed. I see Marla's hand up, so I'll turn to Marla already.
Thank you, Michael. So I do want to comment here, because I know I've been one of the people that have been vocal about these risks. And so I want to express some appreciation for this, Rachel, for the report here, and Arnold. I think that I really appreciate the transparency and how red is calculated. Seeing the formulas is good. It actually shows me the risks were higher than I actually thought they were, but it's good to know. The transparency is good to know. So thank you for sharing that with us. I also appreciate the additional depth that you went into this time on more specifically what the risks are, and more specifically what the mitigation plans are. And I really appreciate the breakout of risk by wave. It's good to know that we're staying ahead of the curve, ahead of the wave, if you will. I think that's going to be really helpful. I really also appreciate the adaptation that I can see here in the plans, and I can really see you being responsive to what's coming up and making some changes to the plans, and I appreciate that as well. So, overall, this is a lot of red, and it is a little bit anxiety producing or invoking, but I actually feel a little better seeing this level of detail, because I can, it's less worrisome when you know more detail about what you're facing than when you know less detail, right? So knowing more detail and really seeing the good fit of the mitigation plans to the risks, I really appreciate. Thank you.
Other questions? Comments, concerns?
This is Diana Alexander, San Bernardino. I have a question. You might get to it more later, but first off, I just want to say thanks. I think this sounds great. I'm glad you guys are aware of what needs to be mitigated. Even though I'm a CalSAWS county, we do have concerns about CalWIN. And we want to make sure that things go well. But I do have a question relative to CalSAWS. When we cut over for wave 1, do we expect any kind of outages or limitations for CalSAWS counties?
Diana, that is what Arnold spoke to on the 84-hour window, that there is going to be some downtime for the CalSAWS counties for each and every one of those waves as we cut over. Now, and so as you come down on, and there is going to be a dark day, and Keith, can you hop in here and say exactly right now, before each one of the cutovers, CalSAWS will be coming down. I believe it's on Thursday evening, so there will be a elongated weekend where CalSAWS will not be accessible. That sort of correlates with the 84-hour window, but what I'm not certain on, that I want your clarification on, is we know the CalWIN counties will be coming down because WCDS needs to come down. I think, will the CalSAWS counties have a whole processing day on Friday?
They will. CalSAWS will be up on Friday, close of business on Friday. CalSAWS will not be available on Saturday. So it's only Saturday that they would be down.
Saturday, Sunday, and then it will be back up on Monday for each one of those waves, Diana.
That is correct.
Okay, that's good clarification. Great question, Diana. We really do need to know what to expect for those that are actually in production right now. So,
and then the CalWIN counties that are cutting over will have a Friday down day because of CalWIN will be coming down on that Thursday evening. They'll have a down day on Friday as Gainwell extracts that data. So it'll be using manual processes on Friday, Saturday, then come up on CalSAWS on Monday.
Thank you.
That CalWIN down day is only for the counties that are migrating that weekend. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Further clarification, but that's a very good point.
other questions? I had a question about the network pop changes that we've had a couple of those where they're happening. Are we outreaching with those directors to see if they can engage their CIOs or CEOs, because it does have ramifications for the county to push back a project, but they also need to know the trade-off of what kind of impact it would have on this project, which, you know, they might be able to negotiate something not to have their schedule impacted. I just was wondering if there's some outreach being done there.
Yes, there's increased communication that's going on with all the remaining counties, just to reemphasize the need for the communication there, and the need to have the outreach to the county MIS departments for tighter integration. So that is a lesson that we harvested and are encouraging the region managers to work with the county directors to implement.
Okay, and I'll just implore for our board of directors in your regions to be able to reach out to your fellow directors in that region to also check on their status and whether or not they're having any issues in that area, because network stability is going to be crucial during this time frame. So we really need to make sure that we can head that off. So any other questions on these high risk areas?
Michael, this is Becky, and I appreciate, sorry. I do appreciate, I know, and I just want to confirm that when you're looking at these high risks and these evaluations of the cutover for the CalWIN counties, that you're looking at also the impacts to the existing system and the operations there to minimize any of those impacts. And I'm sure that you are, I just want to hear it.
Yes, we are. And that's why we're tracking the batch completion windows as well, because that's a direct impact on the existing counties.
Thank you.
In terms of this is a little different than we went through with the C4, who had a lot of alignment from a database perspective. For the counties that are running in production, is there anything special being done just to make sure that we're not going to have any kind of database hit, because the database hit becomes a performance hit on the system?
Yeah, so that's what we're doing with our performance testing that we're doing on the back end, and also these mock cutovers is we're looking at the database layer on both the CalSAWS as well as on the Gainwell side to optimize that so that we mitigate any risk that occurs over the conversion weekend, as well as the post-conversion Monday when we come back up, having the increased volumes that result from that conversion. So that's why we're performance testing the online side, we're performance testing the batch side to mitigate the database impacts.
And I remember earlier, before we actually took all the C4 counties on, there was scaling by waves, and the CalWIN wave, the CalWIN entirety required a number of scaling efforts. Are all of those in place, or they need to be in place for the initial launch of CalWIN?
They are in place, and our current testing shows, and that was one of the medium risks, was the batch window. And so our performance testing on batch shows that we are meeting the batch window with that wave 1. So we have confirmation there. There are still others that we are pursuing just to build more cushion into the database scaling and performance, because we know as we come on, this first wave is 2 smaller counties. Wave 2 has 4 larger counties. It has more data. And that's also why we're having the discussions around do we really need to convert everything over? Do we need that full 20 years of data as well as a partial of that risk mitigation around it? So I think there's more conversations that are going to be occurring within the next several weeks around that as we look at waves 2 through 6.
And Arnold, if I could ask you, and I know you guys are probably doing this, but just ask anyway, if you could take also another look at any jobs that run across the entire system, like COLAs, because I do remember that last time that was one of the things that gave us a little bit of trouble, was a job running across all 40 counties actually became, it wasn't quite as efficient as it needed to be.
That's right.
That would be a production impact on the counties that are already on the system.
That's right. And so those are special runs are also targeted through our batch performance testing process.
All right, I've run out of questions for now. Any other questions from our board members or state partners? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay. Hearing none, John, we can go ahead and move on to the next item. Thank you.
All right, Keith, I think you're up.
I am. Thank you, John. Thank you, Michael. I want to spend a few minutes, and I will be succinct. And John, if you tell me to go faster, I certainly will, because I know we need to make up some time. But I did want to provide some context on what the conversion team's been up to over the last month, and what we're doing this month and in the next few months here. Converted data testing. We are still supporting converted data testing. There are still open CDT defects, and as Arnold noted, we're in the process of continuing to resolve those. There are no priority 1 defects, and all of our priority 2 defects are aligned with the GDS prior to our wave 1 go live. So we're making good progress there. Last month in June, we spent a good portion of that month doing our
real quick, maybe avoid some of the acronyms and provide a little context. So our board knows like GDS and those and P1s and 2s and things, a little bit of context would probably help.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to go too fast here. I had that in my mind and I forgot. Converted data testing, what that really represents, it's a system test, but with converted data. And really what that gives us, or what that gave us, is if we experience any issues, it's more than likely with the converted data. So we can hone in on just the converted data. And that's not to say we didn't identify items that went over to the application development, but far most of those were related to converted data, to the converted data. This was really important for us to go through. It was a very rigorous effort. It started back in November and completed at the end of May. It identified a number of things that I think has made our converted data validation, which I'll speak of in a second, as well as our user acceptance testing, a much more enjoyable effort. So for our users who are participating in that. Now, mock cutover is it's a performance test. Essentially, we execute all of the activities across the program. When I say cross program, that includes Gainwell extracting the data, moving it over to environments on our side, us pulling it into our environments, us working with our DBAs to do such things, the conversion team running their processes, and then the remaining activities to really understand, do we have all the activities identified, which we do, and how are we performing to that 84-hour window, and where do we need to make tweaks? And so we executed that over last June, this past month. As Arnold mentioned, we've revised our baseline down to 87. We have some very distinct mitigation steps that we believe when we execute at the mock cutover number 2, that we will then be in the 84-hour window. So I'm very confident that we will be there. What mock cutover 1 resulted for us was golden data set number 8. We may have spoken on a golden data set. We refer to it as GDS. What that represents, it's converted data on schedule for the project. We wanted to make sure, we started this a long time ago. We did it for the C4 counties as we were going live, is we want to present a schedule to our project that we would be providing converted data on a regular schedule. And an example here is one we just talked about, performance testing. We wanted to make sure that we had a data set available for performance testing so that they can execute the performance test, so they can find out that they're executing within the 10-hour window, which we heard they are. And so we're able to leverage the converted data and not be surprised at go live. And so we deliver a golden data set very routinely. That was golden data set number 8. That also went into county data validation. And what that represents is bringing in counties from wave 1, inclusive of Contra Costa this past month, to participate in a review of their converted cases in our conversion environment to confirm that their cases are looking right. And what we heard is, we heard goodness coming out of that. We had identified a lot of findings, and that was by design. We expected to, because there are a lot of questions about the system. There are a lot of questions about how they're seeing the data. However, we heard a similar type of response, that there was an ease of use working in the application with their converted data. So we got a lot of goodness coming out of county data validation, and I'll talk about the downstream wave 2 in just a second. And last but not least, we're in the process of supporting user acceptance testing. This is the one where we, risk number 263 was really created for user acceptance testing. We wanted to make sure that as users go in there, they had a positive experience. And I think our rigor with respect to converted data testing really was able to get us there, identified any priority 1 and P2s that could have an impact on user acceptance testing. We were able to get those resolved in time. Moving forward, we have mock cutover number 2. That's planning to start at the end of this month, and just next weekend we will start that, and we'll finish that around the middle of August. That will give us, once again, the timings as well as another golden data set. That golden data set will go into county data validation for wave 2, which starts in October for 2 weeks, and so we're on schedule for that. And then lastly, our mock cutover for wave 2, that is planned in December, and we'll be doing exactly the same thing with our mock cutovers. So I said a lot there, and John, I probably went over a lot of time, but it is important to explain some of this stuff and provide the context, as you noted.
And I think it's good that our counties have sort of this schedule, that see how each one of these waves sort of stack up for converted data testing. The mock conversions, we test it with each one of the waves. Go forward, you can see go live events and the county preparation. So that first part of go live, as well as the post-conversion support, the enhanced support that happens after that. So it's a lot of information on a slide, but it shows how what we have in flight for each one of the waves. And to Diana's point, really testing to make sure that we don't adversely impact our production counties, whether that be 40, 42 or with each one of the waves as we go forward, that we continue to have a performance system.
Agreed.
So with that, Michael, I think we're turning this back over to you.
So, so John and Keith, we talked about the golden data set, and that's incredibly important, but where do we talk a little bit about like the yellow banner cases and things that are coming out on the back end of this? Is that in another slide, or is that something we can talk about now?
Sorry, go on, John.
We didn't have that specifically in this meeting. I think we've covered it in past meetings. So to give a quick summary, Michael, and can make sure that a more thorough update in August is provided, that for the CalWin conversion right now, where it's a complete match. So we've done sort of a data validation and match. All the benefits are coming over. They're rolling from CalWin and being issued in CalSAWS. And for 70%, 100% of the cases are coming over. And for 70% right now, and we're going to try to continue to improve that as we go forward, there is a complete match and there will be no yellow banner cases, no yellow banner on that. So now we're down to, 25 to 30% should be the expectation. We've also looking at what are those items to be able to clear those yellow banners. Now the benefits will continue to roll on those items, but they will be exempt from certain like batch items like COLAs and things like that. And there's a time frame for the counties to work on them. And we are working through that with each one of the counties, and we can provide specifics on that as we go forward. And we had a great site visit in Region 5 on Monday, where we got some really good information from both San Bernardino and Riverside that is going to help us provide some additional information out to all of the other counties on how they cleared their yellow banner cases in a timely manner.
Yeah, and we're more than happy also to contribute information, because we had a lot of commonality with CalWin's conversion on yellow banner cases, and Dorothy's team can be helpful with that. I do want to make that part of our regular routine going forward, where we're really looking at each wave, because it's going to be important that all the county directors realize where their percentage individually is inside that wave, and they know what workload is associated with that. So thank you.
We'll take that action item, Michael, to make sure that percentage and the information is not just aggregated, but also broken out by county.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the conversion presentation from our board members or state partners? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment on this presentation item? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, John. CalWin Wave 1 implementation readiness. Is that the right one? Yes.
Yes, it is. Catherine, are you up?
I am up. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Van Amen, and I am one of the ISS implementation leads. Today, we're going to highlight for Wave 1, what we refer to as the readiness executive summary within the dashboard. So right now, what you're looking at is the Wave 1 timeline. It is in a Gantt chart, and this is really highlighting the critical path items on a timeline. And so without going into too many specifics on this page, I'm actually going to provide the status for each one of these areas that you see on the screen across application, system, organizational, training, implementation, and technical on the subsequent slide. So if we can go ahead and move forward one slide. So now we're going, what you're seeing right now is the executive summary of the dashboard. Before we dive right in, I'll go ahead and just orient you to the structure of the executive summary. There are 7 readiness areas that we measure activities across the CalWin migration. Those 7 readiness areas include application, integration, conversion, technical, organizational, training, and then implementation. Next to that, you'll see a color-coded legend, and there are 4 different statuses that are included. For items in a green color, it means that those activities are on schedule. They're in progress and on schedule. The blue indicates that that activity or that readiness category is complete at the point of report. The yellow indicates that there are a few activities that are behind schedule that we're tracking towards. And then there's also red, which is a greater than 14 days. That is items that are not just on our watch list, but we are also creating mitigation plans against as well. The readiness categories are further aligned to the different areas across the project. And for example, we'll walk through a few of them, but really it's a level deeper within the readiness area. So within the application, and I'll actually just go ahead and jump right in. For application, there are 7 different readiness categories. The first one is regarding the CalSAWS releases that Lisa mentioned earlier in today's presentation. For CalSAWS release 22.07, everything is on target and on schedule, a little bit ahead of schedule actually, for this Friday's, for this Friday's release. The next is contact center readiness. These readiness areas, these activities have been underway with the Wave 1 counties for quite some time. In fact, this past week for both Yolo and Placer, the contact center was able to send over the design documentation for both Placer and Yolo and their SCR for final approval, which will be due next week. All of those activities at this time are on schedule. Imaging readiness is another area, another category that again is on schedule. There are no major delays. There are no delays, period, as well as those activities are on track and on schedule within the project. For Benefits Cal readiness, right now there is a number of activities that are taking place regarding the CBO user loads, as well as counties in Wave 1 are currently reviewing the CBO information and working with the Benefits Cal team on that. There is also a CURFI that has been distributed that the counties are reviewing to provide information by next week. So all of those activities to date are on track as well. UAT prep is well complete at this point. So moving into execution, specifically for UAT Group 1, they are wrapping up those activities. Retest for Group 1 for UAT begins next week. This week for Group 2, the kickoff meeting was conducted. And again, this also pertains to all Calhoun counties. And Group 2 testing begins next week on the 25th. For integration areas, that is broken down on the project side by 2 different categories. The first is the county interface partner testing, and the next is the state interface partner testing. On the project side to date, both of those activities are on schedule. Both are slated to be completed before the end of August. Keith already covered the conversion areas for both the defects resolution as well as that auto review rates for the match that were already discussed earlier just before this presentation. Lastly, on this slide for technical, there were 2 items that are being actively tracked. And if you recall, also this does align to RIS 275 that Arnold also mentioned earlier in the presentation. And again, both of these activities for Wave 1 counties are being actively tracked on both the technical side as well as with the counties throughout the weeks that IPT and other areas are occurring. Performance testing for both batch and online is also on schedule moving forward. We can go ahead to the next slide. And also just to make sure that I do clarify, this executive summary is as of all of the activities are as of July 15 date, which was last Friday. So some of the updates that we're also providing also carry over from this week and the following week. The next readiness area that we wanted to highlight for Wave 1 is training. Right now, early learning and train the trainer for Wave 1 counties are underway. The classroom setups and the connectivity, as well as the certification process for those workstations are also they are on schedule for completion well in advance of end user training that won't begin until September 6th. For organizational readiness, this is broken down into a few different readiness categories. The first one is change discussion guides. There's communications, business process reengineering, process simulation, and configuration. The first is change discussion guides. And as Rachel had mentioned, RIS 270, and again, this update is specific for Wave 1 counties. All of the change discussions with the supervisors and the managers were conducted last week. That activity was completed, and now ongoing, there will be office hours as well as tracking mechanisms to monitor how those change discussions are occurring with staff. There are two ways that we are monitoring the completion of that activity. One is through the office hours and the ongoing meetings that are scheduled week to week through the end of August. And then the second activity where we are tracking progress against that is conducted through the T-3 survey that staff will complete towards the end of this month. Communications continue to be on schedule, and the Wave 1 infographics are going to be distributed this week. And so all of those are also on schedule. The BPR effort for Wave 1 counties is complete, and all of the closeout sessions were already conducted. The next item is process simulation, and John also spoke about this earlier. For process simulation for Wave 1, the kickoff meetings were conducted this week, and next Monday is when the process simulation testing and activities truly begin on the 25th. Lastly, configuration. The team has been actively working with the Wave 1 counties to document their configuration worksheets, as well as to provide additional information and guides that are helpful for the configuration effort, not just for process simulation, but that information will also assist the counties during that county prep phase that will occur in September, in the middle of September. For implementation readiness, there are a few items that we wanted to make sure that we cover with you. However, understanding that Rachel also did cover this in RIS number 278, the overall implementation planning effort and that deliverable was submitted last Friday, but there are still a number of strike teams and information that we are gathering in order to provide that information for the Wave 1 counties before the end of August. County prep activities continue to be on schedule. The county prep guide, which outlines the 38 activities, instructions, as well as screenshots, is going through its final review this week. For Wave 1 counties, there will be a county prep kickoff meeting that will be scheduled the week of August 15. The next readiness category is for the pre and post implementation support. This was also one of those items that as part of that planning effort, we will be providing more information to the counties as a result of the ongoing strike teams that are working across the project to be able to finalize those details in those processes. For Wave 1 Help Desk, the county delegated admin training is complete, and the fulfiller training will actually be conducted starting next week. And lastly, for the county ad hoc reporting and analytics, Wave 1 counties have completed all of the education sessions, and now efforts to begin the refactoring of those reports for Wave 1 are underway. Placer does not have any of their any reports to refactor. However, there is ongoing efforts to get more understanding and to work with the project teams regarding the EDR. Whereas YOLO is working with the project to provide additional support to complete the refactoring of the necessary reports for YOLO County. All right, and now if we can please proceed one more slide forward. this right here is the overall Wave 1 county readiness summary. What you're seeing right here are the same readiness areas, and then some of the status through the same color coordination legend, and then just some items that we continue to track on behalf of county readiness. So as you can see, the integration, again, it goes back to risk number 275 and some of the talking points that the project has already discussed this afternoon for both IPT as well as making sure the connectivity is tested and is working as needed. The graphics on the bottom, very quickly again, as of July 15, this provides the visualization of where we are to date in the total number of activities that align to the county readiness checklist. So as you can see, there has been a lot of momentum and a lot of progress towards completing all of the readiness activities for the migration for both YOLO and Placer. The last graphic on the bottom right is just indicating the number of activities that are due within the next 30 days, aligning to each one of those readiness areas. So the month of August, as we enter into T-3, will be incredibly important, and the counties continue to work with their TOS teams, as well as the project team, to close out even more of these activities. And with that, Michael, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Catherine. There was a couple items that went from red to yellow in this last report. I think one was the change discussion guides, and the other was the post-implementation support. So I just wanted a little bit more discussion about that, because obviously red gets our attention, but right now yellow should be getting our attention as well. And I just want to know what actually improved in those areas, because those were two pretty big areas of focus for us to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So taking the first one was the change discussion guides. It did go from red to yellow between the month of June and July. And Michael, the primary reason for that was with the Wave 1 counties, those change discussions with the project, with the county managers and supervisors were completed in the month of July, actually last week. And now there is we've transitioned into the next activity, which is the staff the discussions with staff. The managers, the supervisors will now have those discussions with the staff. So there were two critical milestones for Wave 1 that was required to be able to meet that. It is still yellow because we are still monitoring and tracking that progress from a schedule perspective.
So just from the legend, it looks like the colors in this particular area actually reflect the date to delivery. So if it's less than 14 days late, it's a yellow. If it's over 14, it's or equal to 14, it's a red. What have we done about some of the quality issues and what they wanted to see, like on the change to discussion guides, so that way we can actually get acceptance and closure?
Absolutely. So in Rachel, I know that you also did touch on this a little bit ago when we were talking through risk 270. So I'm not sure if you're still out there, but a couple of things that were done from a quality perspective. The team is not only working more closely in alignment with the counties on those. The change discussions were interactive sessions where they were able to not only collect more feedback, but they were also able to walk them through and also create some simulations to make sure that that transfer of knowledge from a document was consumed by the supervisors and the managers to be able to reiterate and reinforce what those change discussions were and what the changes are for their staff and in those groups. Going forward, the processes by which we socialize the CDGs closer up front, similar to what will be done for the Wave 3 counties, and working collaboratively with Wave 2, those lessons learned that we had from Wave 1 will continue to carry forward in those subsequent waves.
Yeah, and Catherine, let me add maybe a couple of other super tactical items. Michael, we're having our BPR team do a review also of the change discussion guides, because some of the feedback that had been received previously was that not all of the changes that had been discussed as part of the BPR flows had been incorporated into the change discussion guides. So we have now added that as a step to make sure that the people that were in those BPR sessions that have that historical context and knowledge are reviewing the change discussion guides so that the right changes are reflected as part of that, as part of the submission of the change discussion guides. That's in addition to, we're reviewing something that's called the process change inventory. That process change inventory is exactly what it says, is it's an inventory of all of the changes that I've identified between the as-is and the to-be. We found that in some instances that not all of the changes that warranted being represented were included within that inventory. So that's another focus area going forward that we're incorporating relative to quality. We also measure quality according to things like grammar and punctuation and formatting, and we've added a technical writer as part of our team, additional, not just, we've had one, but we added an additional technical writer that's going to be making sure that we are introducing the change discussion guides and updating them with the right level of standard that we have from formatting and spelling and punctuation and grammar and the rest. The piece I'll say that is still an item that has to be an ongoing conversation with the counties is what warrants a change being included within the change discussion guide. It's still an ongoing, I'll say, discussion from a county to county viewpoint as to how much detail to include. There's some perspective of putting it in as much as what would be considered in a how-to guide. But there's training and there's other materials that I had mentioned before that would afford people the opportunity to have that level of detail. So that is the one piece that I envision ongoing that we're going to continue to have some dialogue about to get to that right level of detail. But the rest of it, I'll say we do have things in place now that we are going to be making sure that they get incorporated as we go forward.
Just like training is incredibly important, the change discussion guides are like very part and parcel and crucial to change management. So we want to keep a great emphasis on that, because that might be the one thing that the workers have left to them to look at and say, okay, this makes sense if I follow through with it, or I still can't make sense out of what this says. So I hope that there's still a very eagle eye being put on that, and also litmus testing it back with the county that their workers can follow these and feel like they'll be comfortable in a foreign new system using these things.
Yeah, and Michael, I think, it mentioned in the RIS 270, one of the things that we're going to be doing with the Wave 2 counties and then with the subsequent waves is showing what people will see from job aids, quick reference guides, fact sheets, infographics, training, so that that full complement of support is understood and how the CDGs fit into that. And that has been truthfully a missing link that we need to shore up. We need to communicate that out, so that we'll be getting that feedback coming from the Wave 2 counties in the upcoming conversations.
Good. I look forward to further investment in that area.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments from our other board members or state partners on this incredibly important item on CalWIN Wave 1 implementation readiness? Diana, you still have your hand up. Is that from the first question you had, Diana Alexander? Okay, just checking. All right, hearing none, then we'll go ahead and turn over to any public comment on this presentation. All right, then we'll go ahead and move on. I think we have UAT coming up. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. And Catherine as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Peggy Macias, and I am going to start with giving you our update on UAT, and I'm going to also turn it over to Strawn John to give you some detail on our test execution scripts. So on this first slide, you will see the same color status that Catherine used for her presentation. All the items in blue are items that we have completed, which include the approval of our plan, the selection and confirmation of our participants, the loading of the users to ForgeRock and the UAT environments and applications. We've also completed our UAT test script development, and we've also completed our UAT environment setup. For UAT application training, our group 1 folks have completed their training. Our group 2 folks are wrapping up their training this week. For execution, our kickoff for group 1 was completed, and our group 2 folks actually completed it this week. So you'll see additional blue items coming up at our next report out. For UAT test execution, our group 1 participants are in the process of completing their UAT execution. We may, I don't have the latest update, but we may have a few that we will need to bring into Monday to complete. But thus far, we're doing great work with that. Next slide, please. The next slide tells you just a quick snapshot of the number of folks that we've had participating in group 1. We've had over 130 participants that represent all 18 counties. They have been executing in excess of 430 scenarios across 6 functional program areas. And those areas are CalWorks, CalFresh, Welfare to Work, Childcare, CAPI, and Lobby Management. Move on over to the next slide, please. This just gives you a snapshot of, the status of our execution for group 1. So like I stated before, execution for group 1 started on June 27th for those functional areas. The stats here are as of last Friday, so they're, more updated. By the end of the day, we'll know, where we are. 78% of the UAT group 1 scripts have been executed, and we've had a pass rate of 80%. Our group 2 will start on Monday, and the focus for the program and functional areas include Medi-Cal CMSP, GAGR, foster care AAP and KINGAP, OPOI, fiscal and reports, special units, including hearings and QA. And like I stated just a few minutes ago, our execution kickoff for group 2 was completed this week. So we had 2 days of kickoff, broke up those 2 functional areas into 2 groups, and we met with them and started ensuring folks can access the environments. And before I turn it over to Saranjan to give you the details on the execution scripts, I will just add that we have learned a lot of lessons in our group 1 execution, and we are making some changes and hopefully some improvements for the experience of our group 2 participants. Saranjan?
Good afternoon, everybody. Can we go to the next slide, please? So as Peggy mentioned, we are into group 1 execution right now. So I want to just give you a quick overview of what the group 1 execution status looks like, and more importantly, what is the feedback that we have received so far, and what are the areas that we are going to improve upon. So total 36 defects have been written, but as you can see from the table, that 28 of them are in pending reject status, which means that the application is behaving as it is supposed to, as it is designed. But there were questions and concerns that the new Calvin users have had. So these defects were written to ensure that these defects are given to implementation team, training team, or application development team for further evaluation and see what additional information or a change required could be further pursued following project processes. So overall, the solution is working as designed, working very well for the time that and the program areas that have been tested so far. The bulleted points here is direct feedback that we have received from the participants. So something for us to note and be very happy about, that the 130 plus users that are using the CalSAWS system and doing UAT have said that CalSAWS system is easy to navigate, and the exposure of UAT has allowed them to experience that with real life scenarios and their own data. So the users are able to use the system, they find it easy, and using the real data to process real life scenario is something that is giving them a good experience. There have been a high level of collaboration between the users. We have Zoom room set up where a certain group of testers who is using a certain program or certain area of the system join together and work together, and they are out there helping one another out, enhancing everybody's knowledge and tips and tricks on how to process that. So that has been a great experience for them. As far as the processes goes, we have used Jira as the test management tool this time in UAT, which allows the testers to have access to the test script, to the finding, to the defect, all at one place, which they have very much appreciated, because now they can see the progress and the development of a test scenario update at one place rather than going at multiple places. From process point of view, I want to stress this here, that from application point of view, application is working very well. It is being received very well. From process point of view, I want to be transparent. We had some hiccups in getting people access through multiple environments, which was causing a little bit of concern in the counties. So this time around for group 2, which is going to start on July 25th, next Monday, we have instituted additional processes. We have created a work group that consists of all the relevant team members to resolve those issues. We have shared a survey with the individual testers to let us know in advance that which environments they are able to access and which they are not, so that we can get on those issues early on Monday and Tuesday next week, so that they all have a good seamless experience of using CalSAWS and validating the functionality that is part of group 2.
Thanks for that, Saran John. I think that sort of wraps up and gives a good overview of where we're at on UAT. I know some of our members have some questions. So at this point, let's turn it back over to Michael.
Yeah, I see Lori has her hand up in region 1. Lori, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. And perhaps I might be speaking out of turn, and I don't know if any of my team members are on. I think that with our migration to CalSAWS, my team has been struggling a little bit. They are indicating to me that it's taking them quite a bit of time to process applications, and they're getting a lot of errors. And so maybe we need more technical assistance, but it hasn't been an easy process for at least Monterey County. And they are indicating that it's taking much more time to process transactions than they typically had. So I think that we need to find a way to engage with the project more to figure out how to reduce our processing time, because it's taking like 4 or 5 times more longer for us to process transactions than previously. And so I'm a little fearful that maybe it may be something on our end, but we need to figure it out collectively with the project.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate you bringing that up. We will take an action item, and I'll tell you next week by Monday, you'll have people calling up your folks, and we will engage with you. Our regional manager will take that action item, and you will have our project team's attention, and we will make sure that we get into that and start collaborating to see what is the issue. Is there more technical assistance, or what it is, and get down to specifics start clearing that out. And if we need to do a site visit or a virtual site visit or something else like that, that includes yourself as well as me to sort of get a report out, we can do that as well, Lori.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thanks, Lori. John, I wanted to mention, I like the transparency and the admission of the multiple environment challenges. I really implore the project to keep pursuing how to streamline that. We had similar issues when we were doing UAT for LRS doing the conversion, and it does impede the project's ability to get the right feedback from that UAT group when they're struggling to try to get access to the environments, and sometimes they lose days and maybe even weeks. So whatever can be done about trying to streamline that, we're really supportive of.
Noted, Michael.
Any other comments or questions from our board members or state partners on this, on the UAT presentation? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, thank you. Saranjan, thank you very much. Thank you, John. And Lori, thank you for your comments. We'll go ahead and move on. We've got benefits Cal update.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael. So owner and I are going to take this next portion of the agenda. Just to orient folks, at the conclusion of any of the DD&I efforts, there is a final acceptance that takes place that is based off of number of criteria. And what the ultimate final acceptance does is it allows for the release of what is the holdback payment. And the holdback payment is throughout the project for Benefits Cal, there was a portion of that payment that was held back until the final acceptance is actually received for Benefits Cal. So what owner and I were going to do today was to walk through where we are relative to final acceptance for Benefits Cal. So there are three things that final acceptance seeks to confirm. The first is that we have met the requirements that were established for Benefits Cal. And in this case, those requirements are tied to what was originally defined as the phase 1 requirements. Second is that any of the deficiencies that were identified in a 30-day period immediately following implementation cutover have been fixed. And one thing I want to mention here is that the initial final acceptance was planned based off of that period of time post-September. With the move to Los Angeles in April, we extended actually the acceptance period out to cover the time frame until 30 days post Los Angeles's go live. So the numbers that you're going to see that are reflected are from go live all the way through till 30 days after Los Angeles went live. And then lastly, there is a final confirmation that needs to be done in a report that summarizes all of the things that took place as part of the implementation for DDI, and also certifying that we've met the first two items, which is the requirements as well as the deficiencies have been resolved. And so I had mentioned that there was actually a couple of, I'll say there a little bit of a divide in the way that the final acceptance was done. Originally, it was planned for final acceptance to be associated with a September release to be completed in that 30-day period post the September release. We did submit a report that coincided with the C4 counties onboarding to Benefits Cal. And then we also submitted a implementation completion report associated with Los Angeles's go live and their 30 days post implementation in April. And this is where we are now, is at the evaluation stage to determine whether or not we're actually done. If we can move to the next slide, just want to give a little bit.
And just directors real quick.
Yeah, John.
Following a similar pattern that we did with the CalACES final acceptance. And we're going to present that this month. Next month, we're going to give a quick update. By the contract, I'm empowered to sign off on it. Of course, we want transparency on all of these items. We think that this is a really good story as we went through with Benefits Cal and worked through this. what signing off on the holdback signing off on final acceptance means that during the DD&I effort, we held back part of each deliverable payment until final acceptance. It would release that holdback payment to them, but it wouldn't do anything different to any of the warranties that we have on the code or the future enhancements that we have. It sort of triggers the holdback payment to be released. So after this presentation, we'll come back in August, do a summary of that, and assuming that there aren't any big concerns, that I will be signing off on that final acceptance. But we wanted to walk through that to see if there was any concerns on these items based on the criteria in the contract. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, John. Okay, so for a look back, and I think folks are familiar with the slide, so I don't want to necessarily drain the slide. But where we are today relative to the overall adoption, the numbers continue to increase. And we're seeing 750,000 applications that have been submitted, just under 6 million documents that have been uploaded, and north of 100,000 changes that have been reported to date. And it's something that we're continuing to see the adoption increase. There are some areas that we're going to be pushing as Benefits Cal continues to be enhanced to drive adoption of numbers really that are focused on some of those ongoing case maintenance activities, so that we get some of the numbers associated with periodic reports and also with recertifications, which are sitting a little bit north of 100,000 right now, getting those numbers up a little bit more so as well. So I wanted to, and I know that previously there was a question in earlier sessions, if we could break out the numbers that are contained within this slide based off of Get Cal Fresh, customers, and community-based organizations. We have committed to doing that in subsequent months. So next month, we will provide that information going forward. We didn't, between yesterday and today, be able to incorporate this into the presentation, but today, going forward, that is something that we will share. Okay, owner, sir, if you could take over and talk a little bit about what we saw with incidents.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone. Next, as Rachel mentioned, we would like to briefly walk you through some key highlights on the service desk incidents and production deficiency resolutions for the phase 1 of the Benefits Cal. And as we highlighted earlier, right, our Benefits Cal journey together started in September 2021 with the initial release. And as it relates to phase 1, as of June 23rd, there is no critical or high severity system deficiencies in open or unresolved status. And if you take a closer look at the incident level, since September 2021 go live and up until the 30 days following the LA County go live, LA County rollout, team received and analyzed 798 help desk incidents, which is reported through the ServiceNow system. And all these translated into 47 distinct system deficiencies. And all these system deficiencies are resolved right now. In addition to these, with the first 90 days following the release 1 go live in September 2021, team resolved 181 deficiencies through the production monitoring processes we have, and also delivered major system releases and improvements with the release 1.1, 1.2 to production.
Hey, owner, just really quick. I don't know if the slide had advanced or not, if folks are seeing it.
Oh, yeah,
thank you.
Mine was frozen too. Thank you. So I will quickly highlight that part again. So I was just mentioning that since the go live, we had received 798 help desk deficiencies via the ServiceNow, and which translated into 47 distinct items, and all of them are resolved. And in addition to that, in addition to the 191 system deficiencies, we have delivered major releases and system improvements through release 1.1, 1.2 to production. And in addition to the following the first 90 days of the rollout, we worked through the close collaboration with consortium leadership, counties, and the project holistically for the LA County go live. And after our successful go live in April, end of April, we also deployed 8 more additional threshold languages to other system improvements during that release 3 timeline. And you may also remember we had originally had 12 threshold languages. With that addition of 8, now we have 20 languages supported by the system and available right now. During the production monitoring process following the LA County rollout, we resolved 237 deficiencies. And as we look forward from here, we are currently actively working towards the upcoming rollouts for the Calvin counties through the 6 waves, as Catherine and Rachel highlighted earlier. And we are also preparing for upcoming major releases and system improvements as well. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So next item I would like to provide you a quick highlight is the system performance overall. And as it relates to the system performance of the benefits call system since the go live, we have been measuring and monitoring the key performance metrics daily and reporting on these on a monthly basis. And some couple highlights here to share with you today. The first metric that you see here is about the daily online transactions, which on the benefits call inquiry screens where the number of outputs, the query result has no limit or has a limit or a bound. And out of these transactions that the user experiences, 99.5 of these had a response time less than 2 seconds, right? Where we had exceeded the goal of the 97% target since the go live up until today. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Okay, the second metric that we are sharing on the slide is primarily about the online transactions, where the customer runs an inquiry on the screen and the results has no limit. And for these type of transactions, almost 99.6% of them has a response time less than 2 seconds. Again, in this metric as well, system exceeded the 98% target since the go live. If we can move on to the next slide, please. And lastly, with regards to the system behavior on the benefits call hosted API transactions, and if you ask the questions what these are basically the web service calls to send or receive data from other systems for such as EBT data, such as data that you receive for case data you receive from CalSAWS. And for these type of transactions, 99.99% of these transactions, again, response time was less than 2 seconds, again, exceeding the performance targets as well since go live for these. Can we move on to the next slide, please? All right, on this slide, we would like to quickly walk you through some benefits call requirement delivery and completion status. As it relates to the phase 1, as Rachel highlighted in the beginning in the summary, and John also mentioned that there were initially we had around 170 functional and technical requirement listed, and which elaborated into 237 detailed requirements throughout the elaboration phase. And from delivery standpoint, and out of these 237, 227 are already met, delivered, and available in production. And as it relates to the remaining 10 requirements, they are either removed or reallocated through the formal key decision process by consortium leadership. Where 5 of these 10 items that you see here are to be delivered in subsequent releases. And the remaining 5, the hours are reallocated to accommodate upcoming enhancements, since those original items are no longer valid due to changed policy or additional regulations or business procedures of the consortium. So lastly, in addition to these 237 requirements delivered, team also delivered 7,400 hours of usability and advocate requested system improvements as well during the release 1 timeline of the implementation. And with that, Rachel, I will be handing back to you for the summary slides. Yeah.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'm actually going to turn it directly over to our friends at QA because the summary is just going to summarize what we had talked about before. So I think Owner had walked through where we are relative to acceptance, and I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Pepper for QA's feedback.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kristen Pepper. I just wanted to confirm the final acceptance of the benefits cal and the recommendation. Just this week, we were able to confirm the requirements, the 227 requirements were met, a disposition of those 10 items. We agree with all of those dispositions. We confirmed the defect resolutions, and we also were able to get resolution of the comments. And with that, we have the QA seal of approval on final acceptance. Thank you, Rachel. Back to you.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm going to turn it back to Michael at this point. That's the conclusion of the final acceptance information for Benefits Cal.
And Michael, I want to acknowledge the public comment in the chat. There was a request at PSC yesterday for some disaggregated data. We took a action item on that to see if there is some of these data regarding the platform from which the applications come from and things like that, that we can start publishing disaggregated data. And we took that as an action item, and we will do that here as well.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. I do have a couple questions. One of which you mentioned the language coverage on the website. So is that deployed through a real-time conversion, or is it actually translated pages?
It's translated, Michael. Reason is, you know, we know how important it is from a legal perspective to make sure that we actually are using translations that don't rely on a translation service real time. So we actually do static translations for all the content for Benefits Cal.
Okay, great. Also, I know I asked about this before, and I really do want to try to get it as we're doing this, data aggregation and disaggregation. We're really trying to promote use of the website in LA County, and knowing how many users we have getting on is going to be important for us to know what our ramp up rate looks like, and whether certain campaigns that we're putting out there are effective based on timing. So is that something that you guys can work on trying to also report out on for us, so that we can have that for our board offices and also for our department head? Because obviously this is a great asset, and we want to be able to track the adoption of the platform.
Yes, so we can synthesize and dissect the data a bit more from what we had presented today, Michael. In addition to that, just really quick awareness, as part of our ARPA work that's coming up, we have a focused effort on increasing outreach and engagement for certain areas of Benefits Cal that are working on marketing. So that's something else that we can share as well.
Great.
And Michael, one of the things that you asked for before was the number of accounts from YBN to Benefits Cal, how those things compare. There's been a whole bunch of analysis on that. Rachel walked through that at Project Steering Committee verbally yesterday. We're going to synthesize that into a slide and make sure that that gets sent out so that everybody understands that, then see how we do that with each one of the, as we go forward, to be able to track progress.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And then an ask I have too is, we're trying to, because we are actually trying to advocate the use of the site and get more people affiliated with it. It is different to sign up for than we had in the past, so they need to go through certain steps. There's some great tutorials out there, but there doesn't seem to be any links on the site to those. Is that something you guys could also look into as people go to the site and they want to know what they're doing, having something prominently there, giving them the links to these tutorials out on YouTube and wherever else we have them?
Yeah, Michael, we can. I mean, they're all right now in help for the most part, but I hear what you're saying. I think that's something that we can take back as part of the discovery research too, with users, to say what would be helpful to you if you're struggling with a particular area, where to go get access for help. So yes, we can take that one too.
I appreciate it. Yeah, help menu's fine, but usually people aren't going to, they're kind of on the front page before they can go.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments or input or questions from our board members or our state partners on the presentation on Benefits Cal and the final acceptance?
Yes, this is Diana San Bernardino. I have a question. Yes, Rachel, sorry, but could you repeat what you said about the community-based organizations? I'm trying to make sure that my question got answered.
I'm trying to recall what I said about the community-based organizations.
Then let me just ask this question. So I'm understanding the community-based organizations have been asking questions about their report functionality and how they want it back the way it used to be when it comes to the status of their apps. Is that something that's debate on that, or does that fall into final acceptance?
So I know now, Diana, what you're referencing. There was a report that the community-based organizations used to get that they would then report to the federal government as to how their campaigns are progressing and that sort of thing. There is an enhancement request that we have that is allowing for outreach campaign referral codes to be tracked. So that is something that's coming up, but it was not part of the baseline scope for Benefits Cal. But it is something that there's a referral code that's going to be included going forward that they can then use.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments from our board members, state partners? Thank you, Diana. Any public comment on this presentation?
This is Jennifer from the Advocates Group. I just want to clarify, Rachel, with the referral code, that's just going to show the number of people that went through the application process. It's not going to show the status of the applications in terms of outcomes. And that's a separate functionality that we're still working to have policy developed for.
Correct. Thanks, Jen, for clarifying that. That report that the CBOs used to get came from Social Services, if I recall correctly. Historically, it was coming through CDSS. So Jen, thank you for that clarification. It is something that's tied to the overall release of information discussion that we have been having with the community-based organizations, the advocates, and the counties. So thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
So it's something that's coming, it's just not part of this baseline.
It's not part of the baseline, correct.
So the change is for the referral code, which basically organizes their entrance. Reporting out is going to be part of the ROI discussion and what information is released and what kind of reports will be available to the CBOs. That's in that context.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure we're all clear. All right, then. Any other public comment? Okay, great. Thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it, Rachel. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item. I think that's multi-factor authentication. Exciting topic. Everybody loves tech topics, right?
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Tamakian. So as everybody is aware, we enabled MFA for the counties. Currently, we have 38 counties that have opted in. The number of users that have selected SMS, which is text messaging, as a primary method for MFA, as of 7/13, is 138 users. That number is fairly low. The top 3 counties that have registered for SMS is Shasta, Kern, and Riverside. But like I said, the 38 counties have opted in. So we'd like to see some more usage going, the folks using SMS. Trinity has also decided to opt in, and we're working to get them configured as well. One of the other things that had come up about MFA is the having the option for a callback. I think it's something that Office 365 has, and we were looking at something to enable. It is available in ForgeRock, which is our identity provider, but it's not something that's out of the box. It requires custom work and testing. So we are looking at what we can do there for that feature. A few lessons learned from this, all of this, is that we want all users to register for SMS. That will allow the county delegated admin to easily switch in case if there's any email disruption, because we've been dealing with multiple counties with all the security changes and hardening. We've seen cases where the emails are getting delayed, and also putting them on an allow list. Several things that we have been working through, and we are planning to send out a CIT as a reminder to allow list some of the email addresses that you'll be getting these MFA codes from. And also if there's any antivirus scans that are being done, because there's going to be increased number of emails with this MFA, right? Every time you log in, you're going to get this MFA code, that there's enough throughput for those scanning to be done to prevent delays. Those are, and the CIT, like I said, will be sent out to the counties to remind them to take these actions. If we can go to the next slide. Also, we had a request about reducing the MFA frequency. So this is something that we're looking into. What we've worked out is that we're going to look at recognition of the user based on the device browser. And if the browser and the device is recognized, the MFA to be, waived for a period of time. I think 12 hours is one of the examples that we were looking at. This is a proof of concept that's in our low environment. So we're going to work on this and hopefully we'll have some more in the future, provide some updates on that as well. So this is something that we're looking at. I know that this will provide a lot of efficiency as well throughout the day as people go to lunch and come back, so they don't have to do MFA again. The third item on here is the session timeout for third-party applications. These are when you're in imaging or click reports, for example, for a period of time, and then you go back into log into CalSAWS core, you're timed out. We're working with these vendors to make some changes on their end and feed into our identity manager to hold that session live. There's some disagreements between the vendors, but we're working through that, and we're going to continue until we get a resolution for those items as well. And that's it. I'll hand it back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Mike. I'm really happy you guys have been making movement on this, because security is incredibly important, but we also have to make it work with the business. And so you're right. We want to maybe holding like some kind of a webinar or something with the counties on the SMS, because it's really easy, a lot easier and a lot more convenient than the email channel. Might actually help with the adoption in that space.
Okay.
I know you guys are looking also at the timeouts and session controls. That'll be a big lift and a big improvement as well as you guys make progress there. And we just need to stay kind of current with what's being done outside, right? I mean, there's an app component that can be part of it as well. So just keep, we want to keep offering the counties the same kind of things that can make it more convenient for them and also still secure. So I'm really happy you guys are continuing to address this and push harder on it. I see Marla with her hand up, so I'm going to turn it over to her for her questions or comments.
Thank you, Michael. I just want to make sure I'm understanding here. We're talking about MFA for logging into CalSAWS. Is that correct?
Yeah. So go ahead. Sure.
I'm wondering if any counties have had any pushback from unions or staff about this, about staff using personal phones to do the multi-factor authentication. I know in counties I've been in before, there's been pushback from staff about that, not wanting to use their own phones for this work function.
Right. And so as a default for all of our staff that get loaded in, they will be sent via email. It's optional. If the counties choose to use SMS, it's not required or it's not mandatory. And that's one of the reasons why we did it that way, is that we know that the county provides email to all of their staff. And this is a way that doesn't cross, if the county doesn't want to use the SMS feature because they have personal devices, they can choose not to, and they can, use email.
And Mike, it's not mutually exclusive, right? If they actually have, they opt in for the SMS, it doesn't eliminate them from using email for certain individuals that don't.
That's correct. You can have it can be combined in the county. You can't have both, right, as one person, but the county can have one user that does SMS, one that does email. It's up to the county on how they do that. And the delegated admin has the control of flipping it back to email or SMS for the users.
And that choice of SMS or email can be user specific or it's profile specific?
It's user specific. So each user, as they're logging in, by default, everybody will be email. They can choose to, if the county has opted in, the option will be there for them to select, oh, you know what, I want to do the SMS feature.
Okay, great, thanks. It is a great option. Easier for sure, thank you.
Now, Mike, you're probably going to hate me for asking this question, but I have a lot of experience working with MFA, and I like the convenience factor of if one of the MFA channels isn't working, I pick the other one. Right. Do we have that flexibility? Like I'm not getting the emails not coming through, then I can go ahead to SMS if I'm opted in or I'm signed up. So yeah, so the number one thing for that, and the reason why I say everybody should register for SMS but doesn't have to use it as a permanent solution, is so whenever that does occur and email goes down, for example, because we know that happens at counties, we learned that real quick,
they can, the delegated admin will have control to go flip them to SMS. But if they have not registered, it's a requirement for registration. They have to go through the process because by default, everybody's email, right?
I see.
So they can flip to register for SMS, but never use it and always use email as the primary. But if an issue occurs, since their information will be there and their phone, their device will be registered, the delegated admin can go and just flip one switch on the user and switch them back to get SMS instead of email.
Okay. All right, then Mike, I do want to suggest maybe you do like a marketing out to try to get everybody to do that. Maybe there can be a webinar where counties can dial in and ask their questions and you can allay any concerns they might have for actually signing up for the SMS. The other thing is that, you know, having an admin have to do that. Is there any way to automate that? Because at least the MFA I work with basically allows the user to make that distinction and not have to go to an admin. So it doesn't work. It says choose another method, and the other methods are the ones that we've actually enabled for them, and they can then choose the other method.
We will definitely take that back and look into that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it would relieve your staff or any admin staff of having to do that if it's automated.
Right. So they would have to be registered as SMS, and
Right.
if the email is not working, they can just switch and say, hey, I want to get it via SMS.
Yeah.
Just like Office 365.
There you go.
Understood.
All
And
right,
that's
thank
really
you.
what we're trying to base it around, because we know the Office 365 does all the does all the features.
All the whiz bangs.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from our board members or state partners on this one?
Yes, Diana, I think, Michael, what you just said might have answered my question, but I just want to be sure. Staff are saying they're feeling handcuffed when they're using the SMS option as a backup option when email is down, because it requires you to switch from there to SMS. So are you saying that with the delegated admin, they have control to switch that for us?
That's
As long
correct.
as the staff are pre-registered for SMS?
That's correct. So the delegated admin has a panel that they go into ForgeRock. It's called the delegated admin panel. They could go in there and they can flip the switch from email to SMS, but the user has to be registered with SMS prior for them to be able to make that switch.
Mike, just to be clear for Diana's question, delegated admin, that's an actual person as an admin, not the individual, right?
So yeah, a delegated admin is they're users in your county that have that right, that do administration of users, maybe create CBOs and organizations. And they also have access to go and inactivate a user, activate a user, or flip them from email to SMS. They have certain functions that they do, and every county has a delegated admin.
Okay. So what you're going to take, yeah, Diana, to your point, Mike, you're going to take back, can we create that automated component of it like Teams or Outlook has?
Office 365, yeah, where
Office
when a
365,
person's
where the
logging
user
in.
themselves, Diane, could actually say, okay, the email's not working, I'm going to switch to my SMS right on the fly.
Their complaint was that when their email's not working and it tells you to switch to SMS, it asks you for an email to switch to SMS. That's what I'm being told.
Because they haven't registered yet.
That's the only reason.
And so they're trying to switch to SMS, but for them to switch to SMS, their email has to work. That's why we encourage everybody to register. For you to be able to register for SMS, your email has to work.
Okay.
And that goes back to my first ask, Mike, is that maybe a more assertive kind of aggressive approach with the counties of trying to help them get through that might actually help being pushed from the project.
Okay.
Make it mandatory. My other question is, I'm sorry, if they were to have to do that for a user, is that delegated admin panel person, do they have to do that onesie twosie? Or is, you know, if everybody's email was down, and I know we're going to go back and tell them all register for SMS. Register for SMS. I'm just asking just in case. How do they make that change?
So that's a great question, Diana. It is right now only on a user base. We don't have it on the county level switch. So there isn't really a switch that I can say, oh, I want to switch everybody to SMS that's registered as SMS. We don't have that functionality. It would be on the user profile itself.
Great question, Diana and Mike. Another reason for us to follow the 365 method and let the user switch on their own.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments from our board members or state partners on MFA? See, I told you it'd be exciting. All right, I'm not hearing any further, so I'm going to ask for public comment on this, if there is any. Okay, not hearing any, then we're going to go ahead and move on. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the presentation and the clarifications. I think we've got CalSAWS help desk tickets update. Arnold, does that bring you up?
That brings me up.
Right.
If we just back up one slide, please. So I guess there are a couple of questions that I'll just answer off the top that were action items that came out of previous meetings. And so the first thing, the question was how to get quicker responses and escalation paths for tickets. And the key is to use, there's a couple of functions. One is you can directly call the service desk, either the county or the project, region managers as well. So there's a natural way of, if you're not seeing responsiveness on those tickets, that's the natural course for escalation. On the ticket backlog by county and expected closure timeline, the team has produced a draft report, sending it out to the region managers. So they should be receiving that in the next couple of business days, and we will refine that based upon their input. And then the last point was pulling some numbers around number of tickets closed without response or confirmation of resolution. And so that is talking about the process where when the team gets ready to close a ticket, they document what the solution or feedback is on the ticket and submit it back to the service desk and the end users. In the event, and then the service desk executes the closure mechanism if there's no feedback presented back. Once that ticket is closed, the mode of being able to track it is through reopening, or they open a new ticket. So what we will start doing is coming back to the PSC and the JPA and share with the region managers what those reopen statistics are. So we will start bringing those back into the meeting to continue to track that. If we move up to the next slide now, if you recall, as we were going through final acceptance, there was a question around how do we improve and what our progress was against the service desk diagnostic service level agreement. And that was really focusing on the tickets that are coming through. Are they getting resolved within the time that is expected from the service level agreement? And as you recall, when we were going through the conversation, we saw the dip as we were working through the backlog, and we forecasted that we would be able to get back to the 98% in the September timeframe. We had forecasted that we'd be at 90% by June, and we actually exceeded that a little bit. We're at 90.2% on the number of tickets that met the SLA. So the good news is that was a very 13% improvement over May. So we were at 77.7, now we're at 90.2. And we're forecasting that we'll get to 95% in July, 93% in August, and 98% in September. And the reason why July and August are below 98% is that we still have a number of those backlogs that are dependent upon tickets being implemented with the upcoming releases. And so the release has to go in, and then we can close the ticket. That ticket had exceeded the SLA, so it's already a break in the SLA. So we have very good trajectory developing on this. It continues to be an important focus for our service desks and our tier 3 teams. If we move on to the next slide. Well, the other trend that we were looking at also is looking at those tickets that really ended up with, they were how-tos or not a system error or an explanation for information was required. And what we still see is that where a high percentage of our tickets that are closed are still falling into that category. And that is where we are continuing to review those and enhance the communications, either through CIT, through flashes, through updated training docs, small videos, to be able to get the trends of the larger issues, the big group, and be able to get that information out to the end users so that we can actually answer the questions before they have to go through the process of opening a ticket, going to the service desk or the tier 3. So we still saw 58% of the tickets in June still fell into that category. And so the team is going to continue to focus on what those key trends and what those key points are in order to continue to drive that communication out to both the service desks and the end user community. If we move on to the next slide, please. So all this effort and the focus on tickets has had a very positive impact in the fact that the number of tickets that are actually being created is decreasing. So if you saw it in the lower right-hand chart, you'll see that we had 3,088 tickets created in April. In June, we had 2,216. So we almost dropped 800 tickets there, which is a significant reduction. It's over 20% reduction, which points towards the fact that the additional communications that we're doing and that additional focus is reducing the amount of questions that are having to come through and the amount of issues. So we have a positive trend on the inflow is reducing. We're catching up on the backlog, and that's why we're seeing the improvement in the overall SLA. On the left-hand chart, you'll actually see that the number of new tickets that exceed the SLA, it has dropped very markedly, right? We were at 718 in April, now we're down to 46 for June. So the attention and the focus is definitely paying dividends in an improved user experience. If we move on to the next slide. So we are continuing to focus on this as an area, especially as we start moving forward and look forward to our first wave of CalWIN, so that we have the system is quiet with no major issues, that the backlog is in hand, so then that sets us up well for the first transition of our 2 counties out of wave 1. We still are having weekly meetings between the Gainwell service desk and the Accenture tier 3 teams, looking at the ticket handling processes and the trends, trying to identify those additional areas where we can have additional communication that goes out in the CITs, the videos, et cetera, to the end user community as well as the desks. But we're having a monthly service desk operations meeting. So we're scheduled the August meeting, and we're proactively pulling in part of the agenda from the county service desk so that we can identify what their hot spots or problem areas are and address it as an overall servicing question. And then we're continuing with the weekly email communication within the management and the leads within the Accenture and Gainwell support teams to continue to retain focus on the SLA, the aging incidents and problems, escalation on those that appear to be approaching the exceedance of the SLA timeframe, in order to really continue to keep that focus on the improved service and the improved closure rates. If we move to the next slide. So the other component that we had touched upon in previous discussions was just overall how our performance is against the contractual service level agreements for Accenture. So if we move to the next slide, we have our trending from March, April, May, and June. And for June, happy to report that on the monthly help desk diagnosis time, we are missing the 98% target, but we're at 90.2. So we are seeing an improving trend there. The number 12 has to do with the eligibility determination and benefit calculation. So the EDBC logic, if you recall in previous discussions, what we were seeing is that on the weekends when we had very low volumes, especially after hours, there was typically 1 to 2 transactions that typically had longer look back periods that were exceeding that online SLA. We continue to see those onesie twosies come in, and we are confirming that they are those extended parameters that have a longer lead time. And we're still looking for ways to continue to drive that so that we can reduce those occurrences. Other than that, all of the other system requirements are reported green for the month of June. So we continue to see good performance there. One note there for July, because of our forge rock outage, we will see impacts across some of those SLAs because of the impact to the business and the availability. John, I saw you pop on.
Yeah, just so the board knows this, we go through a very cut and dry process as we look at these every single month and enforce our SLAs. And if there is a liquidated damage or something that comes out, it automatically gets applied and credited, and we go through a process. So if there's anything that the board wants to see on what have been those types of things that have been collected and things like that, we definitely can share, but it is a very standard process that we go through. There's a report that comes out and it gets applied and validated with our quality assurance vendor every single month.
With that, Michael, we can return it back to you for questions and comments.
Great, thanks, Arnold. That was a very detailed presentation. I think what might be helpful for the board is we're moving and shifting what we're going to be focusing on, and be focused a lot on the waves and the things we're moving forward with. If we had sort of like a combined update on system status, so we'll know what's happening in the background and how stable things are. And then we can also be looking at how ready we are for the changes coming forward. Because I know that this is focused on tickets. Maybe we could size that down a little bit and have tickets covered, have defects covered, because those impact us, you know, with the defect closure rates, and then have your SLAs just to show the system stability, show tickets and things that are coming in, and then show defects, all of which actually impact the backdrop for all the counties that are going through these waves. And as those are stable and green and looking good, that lets us focus on the change areas.
Yeah, so we can modify that and bring that in starting next month.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from our board members or state partners on this? Okay, not hearing any public comment on this. Okay, we can go ahead and move along. Thanks, Arnold. Really appreciate the detail.
Absolutely.
Oh, and thanks to John and the team. We do know that you guys are on top of this every day, all the time. It's just good to aggregate it for us, because it becomes noise that ends up deflecting away from what we can focus on going through all these waves and everything. So if we can just know that we've got these things stable and kind of keep it as a backdrop item, that would be really good. Thank you.
All right, this is Brian Nagy with the IVNV team. I know we're at time, so I will be very fast. I do have, a slide here for everybody. I think in the interest of time, I'll just say, first off, a quick introduction. So IVNV stands for Independent Verification and Validation. We're actually an independent oversight party. We're not contracted through the consortium. We're actually contracted through OSI, and our scope is purely on DD&I activities for CalSAWS and the migration. And we focus mainly on the items that you see here on the screen, these 5 areas, at least for the last couple of months. And then we report back to OSI on any findings or concerns or risks. We work with John and his folks in the consortium project team, et cetera, on any risks, updates, et cetera. So for those who aren't familiar, that's what IVNV is. That's our role on the project. And again, I'll keep it real quick here. Basically, I think in summary, what I will say is our team's been tracking, paying a lot of attention to migration activities. You've heard a lot at the top of the meeting, a lot of positives about Wave 1. I do want to confirm that our team is seeing those positive trends also as far as Wave 1 readiness, certainly from a technical perspective, from a system perspective, from a people readiness perspective. We're seeing a lot of positives there. We do acknowledge the project risk, but also want to acknowledge that our team agrees with the mitigation steps, and that we see good progress in those steps as well. And I see the question, IVNV stands for Independent Verification and Validation. It's a mouthful. A lot of people just call us 4 and 5. So, all right. So in the interest of time, John, Michael, if it's okay with you, I'll just turn it back over unless you want me to go more in depth.
No, I think it's, I think you hit on the high points, and that's good. And we are at time. So I appreciate it, Brian, for your input. I do want to thank, we had some new board members this time around. I do want to thank you guys for your participation and attendance and commitment to serve the board and serve your regions through the next year. And it's going to be a fun one. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. And Diana, thanks for you were really engaged today. I really like having you aboard the team today. Thank you very much for your input. And I want to thank Marla for for volunteering to step into a vice chair position and also continue her very engaged input and approach on the project. And then lastly, I want to thank John and his team and the vendors for being very transparent and continuing to be that way with us so that we can make the right kind of decisions, some of which might be tough decisions as we move forward through the project to continue to be successful. So thanks everyone for a good part of your Friday. I really appreciate it. And it looks like our next meeting, please put this down because it hasn't gone out officially, but at least it's earmarked for August 12th. And we'll figure out whether it's a morning or an afternoon one when it comes out. And I believe the rest of the calendar appointments for the rest of the year will be coming out as well from Jennifer Smith.
Yeah,
Okay,
Michael,
John?
I put in the chat at the beginning that the August meeting is at 12:30 and the
Okay.
invitations will go out next week, everybody.
Okay, so it'll be a 12:30 start just as today's was. And I will warn you when we have the 9 o'clock flip back. Sometimes occasionally we do, but next meeting will be at the same time on the 12th. So John, I'll turn it back over to you if you have any other parting comments, or we'll go ahead and free everybody back up.
Nope. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you running the meeting, and we appreciate everybody's time on a Friday afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy
Thanks,
the rest of your
everybody.
day.
Have a great weekend.
Be safe, everyone.